The first shovelful of red Kenyan earth hadn't even hit my father's coffin when my phone buzzed with a video that shattered what remained of my world. I stood at the graveside in Kiambu, my black lace dress clinging to my body in the Nairobi heat, surrounded by hundreds of mourners who'd come to pay respects to James Kariuki, the man everyone knew as a successful coffee exporter. My mother dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief beside me. My two younger brothers stood stoic in their black suits, and somewhere in the crowd, my husband Kamau was supposedly grieving alongside me. The phone vibrated again. Insistent, urgent. I glanced down at the screen. A message from an unknown number. "I'm sorry you have to find out this way, but you deserve to know the truth. What would you do if you discovered your husband's betrayal at your father's funeral? Hit like if family has ever let you down, and comment below where you're watching from." My finger hovered over the video attachment. Something in my gut told me not to open it. Not here, not now, not while my father's body was being lowered into the ground. But grief makes you reckless, and shock makes you numb, and I was drowning in both. I pressed play. The video was grainy but clear enough. My living room, my cream-colored sofa that I'd saved 6 months to buy, and on that sofa, tangled together like they owned the place, were two people I recognized immediately. Kamau, my husband of 8 years, the father of my 6-year-old daughter Njeri, and my cousin Wanjiku, my own blood, in my house. The video was time-stamped. Today, 10:47 a.m. While I was standing at my father's graveside, they were in my home, on my furniture, destroying my marriage. The phone slipped from my fingers, landing in the freshly dug earth beside my father's grave. "Akinyi," my mother's voice cut through the fog. "What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." I couldn't answer, couldn't breathe, couldn't process that while I was burying one man, another was burying our marriage in betrayal and infidelity, so profound it felt like a second death. "I need to go," I managed, my voice strangled. "Go. The service isn't over." But I was already moving, pushing through the crowd of mourners in their black clothes and sympathetic expressions. I heard my mother calling after me, heard the confused murmurs rippling through the gathering, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. My driver Joseph saw me coming and quickly opened the car door. "Madam Akinyi, what's wrong?" "Home, now. Fast." The drive from Kiambu to Karen, where we lived in a modest but comfortable 3-bedroom house, took 30 minutes that felt like 30 hours. I tried calling Kamau 17 times. Each call went straight to voicemail. He turned off his phone, probably so I couldn't interrupt. When we pulled up to our gate, I noticed Kamau's car was still there. Good. He hadn't run yet. I didn't wait for Joseph to open my door. I was out of the car and through the front door before he could even turn off the engine. The living room was empty, but I could hear sounds from upstairs. Our bedroom. They'd moved to our bedroom. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my heels clicking against the hardwood, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. I threw open the bedroom door. They weren't in bed anymore. Wanjiku was dressed, perched on the edge of my dresser, applying lipstick like she owned the place. Kamau stood by the window scrolling through his phone, both of them casual and comfortable in their betrayal. "Akinyi?" Kamau's voice held surprise but not guilt, not shame, just annoyance that I'd interrupted. "What are you doing here? The funeral is over for me." I held up my phone, the video frozen on the screen. "Care to explain this?" Wanjiku had the audacity to smile. "Oh, that. I was wondering when you'd find out." "You were wondering?" My voice rose to a pitch I didn't recognize. "You're in my house, with my husband, on the day I'm burying my father, and you were wondering when I'd find out." "Akinyi, calm down," Kamau started. "Calm down." I laughed, and it sounded unhinged even to my own ears. "My father is dead. My husband is a cheating, worthless—" "Watch your mouth," Kamau interrupted, his voice sharp. "I'm still your husband." "Not for long," I shot back. "Actually," Wanjiku said, sliding off the dresser and moving to stand beside Kamau in a gesture that made my stomach turn. "That's what we need to talk to you about." The way she said "we" made something crack inside my chest. "Kamau and I have been together for 2 years," Wanjiku continued, her voice matter-of-fact like she was discussing the weather. We're in love. We're planning a future together, and we think it's time you faced reality. This marriage is over. 2 years. The number echoed in my head. 2 years of lies. 2 years of him coming home late, claiming work emergencies. 2 years of my cousin's sympathetic phone calls, asking how I was doing, if my marriage was okay, playing the concerned family member while she was sleeping with my husband. I want you out, I said to both of them. Both of you. Out of my house. Now. Kamau laughed. Actually laughed. Your house? Akinyi, whose name is on the deed? I froze. When we'd bought the house 5 years ago, Kamau had convinced me to put it in his name alone. He'd said it made the mortgage process easier, that it was just paperwork, that what was his was mine anyway. That's right, Kamau said, seeing the realization dawn on my face. My name, my house, and actually I need you to leave. Today. Leave. I have a daughter. Our daughter can stay with me. You're clearly emotionally unstable. Look at you, storming out of your father's funeral, making wild accusations, causing scenes. And Jerry needs stability. You cannot be serious. But looking at his face, I knew he was. This wasn't a spontaneous affair or a moment of weakness. This was planned, calculated. They'd been waiting for the right moment, and apparently the day I buried my father was it. Your things are already packed, Wanjiku said, gesturing to 3 suitcases by the bedroom door that I hadn't noticed in my rage. We figured you'd understand eventually. Packed? You packed my things? I moved toward the suitcases, unzipping one. Inside were random clothes thrown together without care. None of my jewelry, none of my important documents, just whatever they'd grabbed to make it look like they'd been fair. Where are my documents, my certificates, my passport, my… Safe, Kamau said. I'll give them to you once you're settled somewhere else. Can't have you running off with things that might be needed for Jerry's custody evaluation. Custody evaluation? The words hit like a slap. Well, you are clearly unstable, Kamau repeated. Leaving your father's funeral early, making wild accusations about infidelity based on some video that could easily be doctored. Doctored? I saw you. Both of you. Did you? Wanjiku smiled. Or did you see what someone wanted you to see? In this age of deep fakes and AI, you can't trust anything, Akinyi. A lawyer will tear that video apart in court. I stared at her. This cousin I'd grown up with, whose school fees I'd helped pay when her mother couldn't afford them, who I'd welcomed into my home countless times, and saw a stranger, a calculating, cruel stranger who'd studied me for weaknesses and exploited every single one. Get out, Kamau said, his voice final. Joseph is waiting to take you wherever you want to go, but you're leaving, now, before I call the police and have you removed for trespassing. Trespassing? From my own home? From my home, he corrected. Don't make this harder than it needs to be, Akinyi. You always were too emotional, too dramatic. It's one of the reasons things didn't work between us. Wanjiku understands me better. She's practical, supportive, everything a man needs. I looked at Wanjiku, who'd looped her arm through Kamau's in a possessive gesture. Then I looked at my husband, the man I'd married at 24, the man I'd supported through his business ventures, the man I'd trusted with my whole heart, and saw clearly for the first time in years. He'd never loved me. Maybe he had in the beginning, but somewhere along the way, I'd become convenient rather than cherished. A placeholder wife while he looked for someone he deemed better. Fine, I said quietly, picking up 2 of the suitcases. I'll leave, but Kamau, you're going to regret this. Is that a threat? He smirked. What are you going to do, Akinyi? You work as an accountant making decent money, but nothing impressive. Your father was a coffee exporter, comfortable but not wealthy. You have no powerful connections, no resources to fight me. I have the house, I have our daughter, and I have documentation that you abandoned your family on the day of your father's funeral. What judge is going to side with a woman who'd do that? I didn't answer, there was no point. Instead, I grabbed the 3rd suitcase and walked out of the bedroom, down the stairs and out of the house that was no longer mine. Joseph loaded my suitcases into the trunk without comment, though I could see the questions in his eyes, the sympathy. Where to, madam? He asked softly. My mother's house, I said. because I had nowhere else to go. As we pulled away, I looked back at my home, at the life I'd built over 8 years, and watched it disappear. Kamau and Wanjiku stood in the window, watching me leave, probably celebrating their victory. But what they didn't know, what nobody except my father's lawyer knew, was that this morning, before the funeral, I'd received a call that changed everything. My father, the comfortable coffee exporter, had actually been a silent partner in dozens of businesses across East Africa. Real estate, technology, manufacturing, investments that had quietly grown over 40 years into an empire worth over $1 billion. And he'd left it all to me, not to my brothers, not to my mother, to me, his eldest child, the one he'd always said reminded him most of himself. The lawyer's words echoed in my head. Mrs. Kamau, your father left specific instructions. The will is to be read tomorrow, after the funeral, at 2 p.m. Please come alone. This is sensitive information. I'd been so consumed with grief that I hadn't fully processed what he meant. But now, sitting in the car with my 3 hastily packed suitcases and my demolished marriage, I understood. My father had known something, had planned something, had left me the tools to fight back against people like Kamau and Wanjiku, who thought they could destroy me simply because I was kind. Tomorrow at 2 p.m., I would learn the full extent of my inheritance. And then Kamau and Wanjiku would learn what happened when you underestimated Akinyi Kariuki. My phone buzzed. Another message from the unknown number. Check your email. I sent you more videos. Timestamps going back 2 years. Every time they thought they were alone. Every conversation about you. Every plan they made. You'll want these for the divorce. I opened my email. 17 video files, all time-stamped and dated. A complete record of their betrayal and infidelity. Joseph, I said, a plan beginning to form in my mind. Change of plans. Take me to the Sarova Stanley. I need somewhere to think, and I'm not ready to face my mother yet. Yes, madam. As the Nairobi skyline came into view, I felt something shift inside me, from devastation to determination, from victim to strategist. Kamau thought he'd won by taking my house and my daughter and my dignity on the day I buried my father. Tomorrow he'd learn he hadn't won anything. He'd just started a war with a woman who now had the resources to finish it. What do you think Akinyi should do first with her inheritance? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're loving this story of betrayal and revenge, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Tales by Ola, and hit that notification bell so you never miss what happens next. Share this with someone who needs to see what happens when you underestimate a grieving woman. The Sarova Stanley Hotel suite was quiet except for the sound of my ragged breathing. I sat on the edge of the king-size bed, still in my funeral dress, staring at my phone screen as video after video played, each one a dagger to whatever remained of my heart. Video dated 18 months ago. Kamau and Wanjiku in our kitchen, him complaining about how I let myself go after having Jerry, how I was boring and too focused on work and motherhood. Video dated 1 year ago. Wanjiku laughing about how easy it was to fool me, how I'd actually thanked her for being there, for our marriage when I'd confided my worries that Kamau seemed distant. Video dated 6 months ago. Kamau discussing how to get me out of the house. We'll wait for the right moment, he'd said, something that makes her look unstable. Then I file for custody and she'll be too emotional to fight effectively. They'd planned this. Every detail, every manipulation. My father's death had simply been the opportunity they'd been waiting for. I was watching the most recent video, recorded just 3 days ago, when my phone rang. My mother. I answered, my voice hoarse. Mama. Akinyi Wanjiru Kariuki. My mother only used my full name when she was truly upset. You left your father's funeral, in front of everyone. What were you thinking? Mama, I can't explain right now. Can't or won't. Your brothers are asking questions. The guests are gossiping. And where is Kamau? He disappeared shortly after you did, and now neither of you will answer calls. What is happening? I closed my eyes. Kamau and I were having problems. Problems? My mother's voice rose. Your father just died, Akinyi. This is not the time for marital problems. Whatever issues you're having can wait. You have a duty to your family, to your father's memory. Mama, Kamau is cheating on me. With Wanjiku. Silence, long and heavy. Finally, my mother spoke, her voice carefully controlled. Wanjiku, your cousin Wanjiku? Yes. And you know this. How? I have videos, multiple videos, going back 2 years. Today, while we were burying Papa, they were in our house together, in our bedroom. Another silence. Then, where are you now? Sarova Stanley. Stay there, I'm coming. Mama, you don't have to. I said I'm coming. Don't leave that hotel. She hung up before I could argue. I set the phone down and finally allowed myself to cry. Really cry. For the first time since seeing that video at the graveside. I cried for my marriage, for my naivety, for my father who died before I could tell him one last time that I loved him. I cried until there were no tears left, until I was empty and exhausted and numb. A knock at the door startled me an hour later. I opened it to find not just my mother, but my two younger brothers, Kariuki and Wangi, all three of them looking worried and angry in equal measure. Show me, my mother said without preamble, walking into the suite. Show me these videos. I handed her my phone. She sat on the sofa, my brothers flanking her like bodyguards, and watched. Her face remained impassive, but I saw her hands tighten on the phone with each video, her jaw clench with each revelation. When she finished, she looked up at me with eyes that blazed with a fury I'd never seen before. That boy, that foolish, disrespectful boy. And Wanjiku, she spat the name like a curse. Your own cousin, the daughter of my sister. How could she? Mama, it gets worse, I said quietly. Kamau threw me out. The house is in his name. He's packed my things and taken in Jerry. He's threatening to fight me for custody, claiming I'm emotionally unstable. He what? Kariuki, my middle brother, shot to his feet. He can't do that. We'll get lawyers, we'll… Wait. Mwangi, the youngest but always the most thoughtful, held up his hand. Akinyi, there's something you need to know. Something we all need to discuss. It's about Papa. What about Papa? I asked, though something in his tone made my stomach tighten. My mother and brothers exchanged glances. Finally, my mother spoke. Akinyi, you received a call this morning from Papa's lawyer, didn't you? Before the funeral? I nodded slowly. Yes, Mr. Omandi. He asked me to come to his office tomorrow at 2 p.m. for the will reading. He said it was sensitive. He called us too, Kariuki said. Asked us to come at 3 p.m., separate appointments, different times. Why would he do that? I asked. Because, my mother said carefully, your father left specific instructions about how his estate should be divided, and he wanted each of you to hear your portion privately before a family meeting. I don't understand. Papa was comfortable, but he wasn't wealthy. The coffee export business was successful, but… The coffee export business was a front, Mwangi interrupted. Papa's real wealth came from investments, real estate, technology startups, manufacturing. Akinyi, Papa was very, very wealthy. None of us knew the full extent until after he died and Mr. Amandi started explaining. I sat down heavily on the bed. How wealthy? My mother looked me in the eyes. Over $1 billion, Akinyi. Your father was a billionaire, and he hid it from all of us to protect us, to let us live normal lives without the complications that come with that kind of money. The room spun. $1 billion. The words didn't make sense. My father, who'd driven a modest Toyota, who'd lived in a comfortable but unremarkable house in Kayambu, who'd clipped coupons and complained about the cost of electricity, was a billionaire? And tomorrow, my mother continued, you're going to find out exactly what he left you. But Akinyi, your father loved you deeply. You were his first child, his only daughter. He always said you had his mind for business, his strategic thinking. Whatever he left you, it wasn't an accident. It was intentional. Which is why, Kariuki said, his voice hard, Kamau picked the worst possible time to betray you. He has no idea what's coming. Neither does Wanjiku, Wangi added with a cold smile. They think they've won, that they've successfully pushed you out and taken everything that matters. They don't know they've just made an enemy of someone with the resources to destroy them. I looked at my family. my mother's fierce protective anger, my brother's readiness to fight, and felt something settle in my chest. I wasn't alone. Even without my father, I had people who would stand with me. Tomorrow, I said quietly, after I meet with Mr. Amandi, we're going to plan. Carefully, strategically. Kamau wants to claim I'm unstable? Fine, let him think that. Let him and Wanjiku celebrate their victory, because when I strike back, I want it to be devastating. My mother smiled, a sharp, predatory expression I'd inherited from her. Your father would be proud. He always said revenge is a dish best served cold, but served thoroughly. After my family left, promising to return tomorrow after my meeting with the lawyer, I finally showered and changed into comfortable clothes. The funeral dress went into the trash. I never wanted to see it again. I was ordering room service when my phone rang. Kamau. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. What do you want? Jerry is asking for you, Kamau said, his voice neutral. She's confused about why you didn't come home from the funeral. What should I tell her? The casual cruelty of using our daughter to twist the knife made me want to scream. Instead, I kept my voice calm. Put her on! A moment later, my daughter's small voice came through the phone. Mama, where are you? Daddy said you had to go away for a while. I did, baby. But I'll see you very soon, I promise. Are you okay? Has Daddy been taking good care of you? Yes, Auntie Wanjiku is here too. She made ugali for dinner, but it wasn't as good as yours. A pause. Mama, why are you crying? I hadn't realized I was until she said it. I wiped my eyes quickly. I'm just missing you, sweetheart. And missing Babu too. Today was hard. I miss Babu too. And I miss you. When are you coming home? Soon, baby. Very soon. I love you so much. I love you too, Mama. Kamau took the phone back. There. You've talked to her. Don't call again tonight. She needs stability and routine. Not a mother who's falling apart. Kamau, I said, my voice ice. Enjoy your victory while it lasts. Because I promise you, this isn't over. It is over, Akinyi. Accept it and move on. I'll have my lawyer contact you about custody arrangements and divorce proceedings. He paused. Oh, and don't bother fighting for the house. You'll lose. I have documentation of your emotional instability. Leaving your father's funeral early, making wild accusations, disturbing the peace. No judge will side with you. We'll see, I said and hung up. I sat in the hotel room as night fell over Nairobi, eating room service and planning. By midnight, I had a notebook filled with names, dates, and strategies. By 2 a.m., I'd contacted 3 of Nairobi's most prestigious law firms, requesting appointments for next week. And by 4 a.m., when I finally tried to sleep, I had a clear picture of what needed to happen. First, meet with Mr. Amandi and understand the full extent of my inheritance. Second, secure the best legal representation money could buy. Third, gather every piece of evidence of Kamau's infidelity and his plans to manipulate custody. Fourth, ensure Njeri's well-being and safety throughout the divorce. And fifth, most importantly, make sure Kamau and Wanjiku understood that betraying me on the day I buried my father was the biggest mistake of their lives. My phone buzzed at 6 a.m. Another message from the unknown number. The person who sent you these videos will reveal themselves tomorrow at the lawyer's office. They have more information you'll need. Trust them. I stared at the message. Someone had been documenting Kamau and Wanjiku's affair for 2 years and only revealed it today. Someone who knew about my father's lawyer and the will reading. Someone who was helping me, but why? The mystery would have to wait. At 1:45 p.m., I was dressed in a crisp black suit, my hair pulled back, my makeup flawless, walking into the offices of Amandi and Associates in Nairobi's Central Business District. Mr. Amandi's secretary showed me into a large conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Mr. Amandi himself stood when I entered, a distinguished man in his 60s who'd been my father's lawyer and friend for over 30 years. Akinyi, he said warmly, shaking my hand. I'm so sorry for your loss. Your father was an extraordinary man. Thank you, Mr. Amandi. Please sit. We have much to discuss, and I suspect you've had a difficult 24 hours. That was an understatement, but I nodded and sat. Mr. Amandi pulled out a thick folder. Your father came to me 6 months ago with unusual instructions. He was ill, cancer, which he'd hidden from the family, and he knew his time was limited. He wanted to ensure his estate was protected and distributed according to his exact wishes. He was sick? The words caught in my throat. For 6 months and he didn't tell us? He didn't want to worry you. He said you all had your own lives, your own struggles. He wanted to handle it privately. Mr. Omondi's expression softened. But Akinyi, he also did something else. He hired a private investigator to look into your husband. The room went silent. What? Your father noticed things. The way Kamau spoke to you. Small signs of disrespect. Financial irregularities in your joint accounts. He asked me to hire someone discreet to investigate. What they found? He slid a second folder across the table. Everything is documented here. The affair with your cousin, the financial manipulation, the plans to divorce you and take custody of Njeri while leaving you with nothing. My hands trembled as I opened the folder. Bank statements showing Kamau had been siphoning money from our joint account into a private one. Emails between Kamau and Wanjiku discussing their plans. More videos, more photos, more evidence than I could have gathered in a lifetime. Your father wanted you to have ammunition, Mr. Omondi said quietly. He wanted to make sure that if Kamau ever tried to hurt you, you'd have the means to fight back. Papa knew, I whispered. He knew, and he was protecting me even while he was dying. Yes, and now for the will. Mr. Omondi pulled out the final document. Akinyi, your father's estate is valued at approximately $1.2 billion. Properties across East Africa. Investments in technology, real estate, manufacturing, partnerships in businesses you've never heard of because he kept everything private. And he left it to 70% goes to you. 20% is divided between your brothers. 10% goes to your mother, with the understanding that you'll ensure she's always taken care of. Mr. Omondi looked at me intently. Akinyi, your father left you controlling interest in everything. You are now one of the wealthiest women in East Africa, and you have the power to do whatever you wish with that wealth. I couldn't breathe, couldn't process. $840 million. The number was incomprehensible. There's one more thing, Mr. Omondi said. Your father left you a letter. He asked that you read it alone. He handed me an envelope with my name in my father's familiar handwriting. My hands shook as I opened it. My dearest Akinyi, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you're discovering that your old man was better at keeping secrets than you thought. I'm sorry for hiding my wealth from you, but I wanted you to grow up normal, to work hard, to understand the value of money earned rather than inherited. But now you need this money because I know what's coming. Kamau is not the man you married. I've watched him slowly show his true colors. Selfish, weak, cruel when he thinks no one is looking. I've gathered evidence to protect you, but more than that, I've given you the tools to stand on your own. You are my daughter. You have my strength, my mind, my determination. Don't let anyone, especially not a man who couldn't see your worth, make you doubt yourself. Use this money wisely. Protect Njeri and Akinyi. Don't just survive what's coming. Win, completely and thoroughly. Make them regret ever underestimating you. I love you more than words can express. Make me proud. Your Papa. I read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Then I carefully folded it and placed it in my purse. Mr. Omondi, I said, my voice steady despite the emotion. I need you to do something for me. Anything. I need you to file divorce papers against Kamau immediately, citing infidelity, financial abuse, and emotional manipulation. I want full custody of Njeri. I want the house. I don't care that it's in his name. I want it. And I want financial restitution for every shilling he stole from our joint account. Mr. Omondi smiled. I've been hoping you'd say that. I'll have everything filed by end of business today. And one more thing. I want to know who sent me those videos yesterday. The person who documented everything. Ah, yes, about that. Mr. Omondi checked his watch. They should be arriving any moment. Your father arranged for them to meet you here after the will reading. A knock on the door interrupted us. The secretary poked her head in. Mr. Omondi, your 2:30 appointment is here. Send them in. The door opened and a woman walked in. Mid-30s, professional, carrying a briefcase. It took me a moment to recognize her. "Mama Grace," I gasped. Grace Mwangi had been our housekeeper for 5 years before Kamau had suddenly fired her 8 months ago, claiming we needed to cut expenses. I'd been devastated. Grace had been wonderful with Jerry, trustworthy, kind. Her firing had never made sense. "Hello, Akinyi," Grace said, setting her briefcase on the table. "Or should I say, Miss Kariuki, your father hired me to keep working in your house after Kamau fired me, but not as a housekeeper, as a private investigator." My mouth fell open. "You... what?" "I have cameras installed throughout your home, audio recordings, financial tracking. Everything Kamau and Wanjiku have said or done for the past 8 months is documented. Your father wanted to make sure you had overwhelming evidence when you needed it." She smiled. "And now you do." I looked at Grace, at Mr. Omondi, at the folders full of evidence, and the letter from my father, and felt power settle over me like armor. Kamau thought he'd destroyed me yesterday, thought he'd taken everything and left me broken. He had no idea he'd just declared war on a billionaire. Can you believe what Akinyi's father did to protect her? Drop a comment with your thoughts. Do you think Kamau deserves what's coming? And what would you do with $840 million? Let us know below. Don't forget to subscribe to Tales by Ola and hit that notification bell. Like this video if you're Team Akinyi all the way. The law offices of Harrison and Associates occupied an entire floor of the Times Tower building in Nairobi's central business district. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see all of downtown Nairobi spread below, a city that had no idea one of its newest billionaires was about to wage war on a cheating husband. Sarah Harrison, senior partner and one of Kenya's most feared divorce attorneys, sat across from me reviewing the evidence Grace had compiled. She was in her 50s, impeccably dressed in a tailored navy suit, her gray-streaked hair pulled into a sleek bun. Her reputation was legendary. She'd never lost a custody case, and her settlements were brutal. "Mrs. Kamau," she said, looking up from the documents, "I've been practicing family law for 28 years, and I've never seen documentation this thorough. Your father's investigator was exceptional." "Grace is sitting outside if you need to speak with her," I said. "I will. But first, let's discuss strategy." Sarah leaned back in her chair, fingers steepled. "Your husband believes he has the advantage. The house is in his name. He's portrayed you as unstable for leaving your father's funeral, and he's already positioned himself as the stable parent. But what he doesn't know is that you have video evidence of systematic infidelity, financial abuse, and premeditated manipulations spanning 2 years. Can we use it all in court?" I asked. "Not only can we use it, we should use it strategically. If we dump everything at once, Kamau might settle quickly to avoid public disgrace. But if we reveal evidence piece by piece, we can control the narrative and maximize both the legal and social consequences." "I want full custody of Njeri," I said firmly. "That's non-negotiable." "You'll get it. The videos show Kamau and your cousin engaging in their affair while your 6-year-old daughter was in the house, sometimes in the next room. That's enough to demonstrate poor judgment and an inappropriate environment for a child. We'll also argue that Kamau's deliberate emotional manipulation and his willingness to destroy your support system shows he prioritizes his desires over his daughter's well-being." "What about the house?" Sarah smiled, a sharp, predatory expression. "The house is more complex. It's in his name, but you contributed to the down payment and have been paying half the mortgage from your salary for 5 years. In Kenya, marital property isn't just about whose name is on the deed. It's about contribution and equity. We'll argue you're entitled to at least 50% of the value. But Mrs. Kamau, may I make a suggestion? Please, don't fight for that house. Let him keep it. Instead, buy a better one. A much better one. In your name only. Let your husband stay in the house where he destroyed your marriage while you and Njeri live somewhere new, somewhere without painful memories. It's not about winning the house. It's about showing him you've moved beyond needing anything he can provide." The logic was sound, but something in me resisted. He threw me out with 3 hastily packed suitcases. He made me homeless on the day I buried my father. I understand the desire for justice, but strategic revenge isn't about taking back what he took from you. It's about making him realize what he lost. Sarah leaned forward. Mrs. Kamau, you're about to become publicly known as a billionaire heiress. When that happens, every news outlet in Kenya will be watching this divorce. Kamau will have to watch you thrive, watch you succeed, watch you give your daughter a better life than he ever could have provided. That's more devastating than any house. I considered this. She was right. I didn't want the house. I wanted Kamau to suffer the way he'd made me suffer. And watching me rise while he stayed stagnant in the house he'd stolen would be its own punishment. Fine, he can keep the house, but I want every shilling he took from our joint account returned with interest. And I want primary custody with only supervised visitation for him. Done. Now there's one more issue we need to discuss. Your cousin Wanjiku. My jaw tightened at the name. What about her? She's not your husband's wife, so she has no legal standing in the divorce, but she can be subpoenaed as a witness. If we call her to testify under oath about the affair, she'll either have to admit to everything publicly or commit perjury. Either way, her reputation in your family and community will be destroyed. Do it, I said without hesitation. She sat in my living room, drank my tea, gave me advice about my marriage while she was sleeping with my husband. She deserves to face the consequences. I'll add her to the witness list. Now, one final thing. The media. Once your inheritance becomes public knowledge, you'll be swarmed. Journalists, social media, everyone wanting your story. We need to control that narrative. I recommend you hire a public relations firm to manage your image and protect your privacy. I'll handle it. My father's lawyer is helping me establish a proper management structure for the estate. PR will be part of that. Sarah stood, extending her hand. Mrs. Kamau, it's been a pleasure. The divorce papers will be filed tomorrow morning. Your husband will be served by Friday. I suggest you prepare for his reaction. It won't be pleasant. I shook her hand firmly. I'm counting on it. By the time I left the law office, it was 4 p.m. My phone had 17 missed calls, 5 from my mother, 3 from each of my brothers, and 6 from a number I didn't recognize. I was about to call my mother back when my phone rang again. The unknown number. I answered. Hello? Mrs. Kamau, this is Principal Adiambo from Njeri's school. I'm calling because your husband came to pick up Njeri early today, claiming a family emergency. He also submitted paperwork attempting to remove you from the approved pickup list and designating someone named Wanjiku Muthoni as an emergency contact. I wanted to verify this with you before making any changes. Ice flooded my veins. No, do not remove me from any lists. Do not add Wanjiku Muthoni to anything. And Principal Adiambo, I need to inform you that my husband and I are divorcing. There may be custody issues. Until the court makes a determination, neither parent should be able to remove the other from school documentation or make unilateral decisions about our daughter's care. I understand. I'll make note of that in Njeri's file. For what it's worth, Mrs. Kamau, I'm sorry to hear about your troubles. Njeri is a wonderful child, and we'll do everything we can to make sure she's protected during this difficult time. Thank you, Principal Adiambo. I appreciate it. After hanging up, I immediately called Sarah Harrison back and told her what Kamau had tried to do. That's parental alienation, Sarah said grimly, attempting to cut you out of your daughter's life and replace you with his mistress. Add it to the filing. The judge will not look kindly on that. Next, I called Kamau. He answered on the second ring, his voice cold. What do you want, Akinyi? You tried to remove me from Njeri's school contact list? Njeri needs stability. Having you show up unpredictably, emotional and unstable, isn't good for her. Wanjiku has agreed to help with school pickups and care. She's good with children. Wanjiku is not Njeri's mother. I am. And you don't get to replace me. I'm not replacing you. I'm ensuring our daughter has appropriate care while you work through your obvious mental health crisis. Any reasonable person would understand that a woman who abandons her father's funeral isn't in a position to make decisions about childcare. His calm, reasonable tone made me want to scream. Instead, I kept my voice level. Kamau, you should know, I've hired a lawyer. You'll be served with divorce papers within the week. A pause, then a laugh, sharp and condescending. Of course you have. Let me guess, some bargain attorney you're paying with your accountant's salary? Akine, I have the best family lawyer in Nairobi on retainer. This divorce will be quick, clean, and entirely in my favor. Save yourself the money and just accept my terms. We'll see, I said. Oh, and Kamau, give Jerry a kiss goodnight for me. Tell her Mama loves her, and we'll see her very soon. Mama won't be seeing her at all unless it's supervised. I've already documented your instability, your abandonment, your inability to prioritize your child over your drama. You're not fit to be alone with her. I hung up before I said something I'd regret. Then I called Grace, who answered immediately. Grace, I need the video of Kamau and Wanjiku discussing their plans to take Jerry from me. The one where they talk about making me look unstable. Sending it now. What are you going to do with it? Something I probably shouldn't, but something I need to. The video arrived moments later. I watched it once. Kamau and Wanjiku in my kitchen 3 months ago, discussing how to manage the Akinyi problem and ensure Kamau got full custody while I got nothing. The cold calculation in their voices, the way they laughed about my tears, my fears, my desperate attempts to save a marriage they were actively destroying. I forwarded the video to 3 people, my mother, my brothers, and Sarah Harrison. Then I posted it to a private Instagram account I'd created that afternoon, an account that would go public tomorrow, once the divorce papers were filed, an account that would tell my story with evidence to counter whatever narrative Kamau tried to spin. My phone exploded with calls. First, my mother. Akinyi, is this real? Is this truly what he said about you? Yes, Mama. That's who he really is. I'm coming to the hotel, right now. We need to talk about how to protect Jerry from this monster. Next, Karaoke. Sister, I'm going to kill him. I'm serious. I'm going to his house right now and... No, you're not. We're handling this legally, properly, strategically. But Karaoke, I need you to do something for me. Anything. Find out everything you can about Kamau's business, his finances, his partners, his vulnerabilities. Papa always said knowledge is power. I want to know exactly where Kamau is weak. Done. I'll have a full report by tomorrow. Finally, Mwangi. Akinyi, that video. Did Papa know about this? Is this why he left you most of the estate? Papa knew everything. He was protecting me even while he was dying. Then we honor him by finishing what he started. Tell me what you need. Right now, I need my daughter back. Everything else is secondary to that. We'll get her back. All of us together. Kamau doesn't know what he started. By 8 p.m., I was back in my hotel suite with my entire family crowded in. My mother on the sofa, my brothers at the desk reviewing documents Grace had provided, Grace herself in the corner compiling additional evidence. Here's what we know, Karaoke said, spreading papers across the desk. Kamau's logistics company has been struggling for the past year. He's behind on payments to 3 major creditors. His biggest client just dropped him, and he's taken out personal loans to keep the business afloat. Loans he hasn't told you about. How much does he owe? I asked. About 8 million shillings, and it's due in 6 months. If he can't pay, the business folds. So he needs money desperately, I said slowly, which means the house, which has appreciated significantly in value, is his only real asset. Exactly, Mwangi added, which is probably why he was so eager to get you out. If you divorced amicably, you'd be entitled to half its value. But if he can prove you're unfit and get full custody, he can argue you don't deserve anything because you abandoned your family. It's all about money, my mother said bitterly. It was never about love or family, just money. Then let's use that against him, I said. If Kamau needs money, he's vulnerable. Desperate people make mistakes. What are you thinking? Grace asked. I'm thinking we let him believe he's winning. We let him think I'm broken, defeated, too poor to fight effectively. And then, when he's comfortable and confident, we reveal everything. The inheritance, the evidence, the witnesses. We pull the rug out from under him so completely that he doesn't just lose, he's destroyed. Sarah Harrison had said strategic revenge was about making him realize what he'd lost. But I was realizing it was also about making him understand that he'd never had the power he thought he did. That the wife he'd dismissed as boring and emotional and weak was actually the daughter of a billionaire with the resources to ruin him. My mother looked at me with something like awe. Your father would be so proud of you right now. I hope so, Mama, because I'm about to wage war on my husband in a way that will shock everyone. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I know who you are now. Know what you inherited. We need to talk. If you want to keep your daughter safe, meet me tomorrow. 10 a.m. Java House, Westlands. Come alone. Wanjiku. I showed the text to my family. Kariuki swore. Mwangi clenched his fists. My mother's face went pale. It's a trap, Grace said immediately. She's going to try to manipulate you. Maybe record you saying something she can use in court. Probably, I agreed, but she also just confirmed that she knows about the inheritance, which means someone told her, likely Kamau, though I don't know how he found out. And if they know, they're going to change their strategy. I need to know what they're planning. Then I'm coming with you, Kariuki insisted. No, if Wanjiku sees I brought family, she won't talk. But Grace, can you be nearby in case things go wrong? I'll be at the next table with recording equipment. If she threatens you or tries anything, we'll have it documented. Good. I looked at the text again. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., I'm going to look my cousin in the eye and let her try to justify what she's done. And then I'm going to make sure she understands that betraying me was the worst mistake of her life. What if she tries to hurt you? My mother asked, worry creasing her face. She won't. Wanjiku is many things, but she's not violent. She's calculating. She wants something, and she thinks meeting with me will get it. I'm going to let her believe that, and then I'm going to walk away with more information than she ever intended to give. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about Nyeri, wondering if she was scared, if she was asking for me, if Kamau was poisoning her against me with lies about why Mama wasn't there. I thought about my father, who'd spent his final months orchestrating my protection from beyond the grave. And I thought about tomorrow's meeting with Wanjiku, the woman who'd grown up calling me sister, who'd shared my home and my secrets and my trust, then used all of it to steal my husband. At 9:45 a.m., I walked into Java House Westlands wearing jeans and a simple blouse. Deliberately casual, deliberately non-threatening. I'd left my new designer handbag at the hotel and carried an old purse instead. I wanted Wanjiku to think I was still the same Akinyi. Struggling, defeated, powerless. She was already there, sitting at a corner table, dressed in an expensive outfit I recognized from my own closet. She'd been stealing my clothes too, apparently. I sat down across from her without greeting. Akinyi, she said, her voice falsely sympathetic. You look tired. Are you okay? What do you want, Wanjiku? I want to help you. I know you're hurting, and I know this whole situation has been difficult. Difficult? I almost laughed. You're sleeping with my husband. You helped him throw me out of my house. You're trying to replace me in my daughter's life. And you think I'm just having a difficult time? You're right, I'm sorry. That was insensitive. She leaned forward, her expression earnest. But Akinyi, I want you to know, I never meant to hurt you. What Kamau and I have, it just happened. We tried to resist, but love isn't something you can control. Love, I repeated flatly. You call this love? Yes. And I know you can't understand right now, but someday maybe you will. Sometimes people are just meant to be together, even if the circumstances are complicated. So you asked me here to tell me you're in love? That's your big message? No. Wanjiku's expression shifted, became more businesslike. I asked you here because I heard something interesting. About your father's will. There it was. The real reason for this meeting. What about it? I asked carefully. I heard he left you something significant, more than anyone expected. In Akinyi, I think we should talk about how that affects the divorce settlement. How would my inheritance affect anything? Kamau and I are divorcing. What my father left me is my business. Except it's not that simple, is it? You're still married to Kamau, which means anything you inherit during the marriage is technically marital property, which means Kamau is entitled to half. I felt my stomach drop. Was she right? Could Kamau claim half my inheritance simply because we were still legally married when my father died? I can see you didn't think of that, Wanjiku continued, satisfied. That's why I wanted to meet with you. Kamau is preparing to file for his share of your inheritance. His lawyers say he has a strong case. But Akinyi, I can help you. I can convince Kamau to settle for less, maybe 25% instead of 50%, if you agree to certain terms. What terms? Give up custody of Njeri voluntarily. Admit you're not in a mental state to be a primary parent right now. Let Kamau have full custody with generous visitation for you. In exchange, he'll only take a quarter of your inheritance instead of half. You'll still walk away with hundreds of millions, and you'll get to see your daughter regularly. Everyone wins. I stared at my cousin, this woman who'd schemed and betrayed and manipulated, and felt a cold fury settle over me. Let me make sure I understand, I said quietly. You want me to give up my daughter in exchange for keeping more of my father's money? I want you to be practical. Akinyi, you're about to be incredibly wealthy. You can have other children someday if you want. But right now, Najeri needs stability, and Kamau can provide that. Plus, with your work schedule and your grief over your father, can you honestly say you're the best parent for her right now? You disgust me, I said. I'm being honest. That's more than you can say. You've been pretending everything was fine in your marriage for years when you knew Kamau was unhappy. He was unhappy? That's your justification? Adults have adult conversations, Akinyi. Sometimes marriages don't work. Sometimes people fall in love with other people. It happens. The mature response is to accept it and move forward, not wage some vindictive war that hurts everyone, especially Njeri. I stood up. Tell Kamau I'll see him in court. And Wanjiku, you should both get very good lawyers. You're going to need them. You're making a mistake, Wanjiku called after me. Kamau will take half of everything, and you'll lose your daughter too. This was your chance to negotiate. I walked out without responding. Grace followed moments later, her recording equipment hidden in her bag. Did you get all of that? I asked once we were safely outside. Every word, including her admission that she and Kamau are strategizing together to extort you, using your daughter as leverage. Send it to Sarah Harrison immediately. And Grace, I'm done playing defense. It's time to go on offense. My phone rang as we walked to the car. Sarah Harrison. Mrs. Kamau, I just received some disturbing information. Kamau's lawyer filed a motion this morning claiming you inherited significant assets during your marriage and that he's entitled to half per Kenyan marital property law. I know. Wanjiku just tried to blackmail me into giving up custody in exchange for him taking only a quarter. That's attempted extortion. But Mrs. Kamau, we need to discuss this marital property claim. In Kenya, assets acquired during marriage are generally considered joint property unless specific exceptions apply. Your inheritance could potentially be vulnerable. What exceptions? If your father's will specifically stated the inheritance was for you alone and excluded your spouse. Did it? I thought back to the will reading, to Mr. Amandi's careful words. I don't know. I need to call Mr. Amandi. I did so immediately. Mr. Amandi answered on the first ring. Akinyi, I was just about to call you. Kamau's lawyer contacted me, demanding to see your father's will. Can he claim half my inheritance? No. Your father anticipated this possibility. The will explicitly states that all assets are your separate property, inherited in your name alone, with specific legal language excluding any spousal claim. It's ironclad. Kamau can file all the motions he wants, but he won't get a single shilling of your inheritance. Relief flooded through me. So he has nothing? Worse than nothing, by filing a frivolous claim on your inheritance, he's shown the court that he's motivated by greed rather than his daughter's well-being. Sarah can use this against him in the custody hearing. After hanging up, I turned to Grace with a smile. He's trapped. Kamau tried to grab my money and just handed us more evidence of his real priorities. So what now? Grace asked. Now we file the divorce papers. We subpoena Wanjiku. We present every piece of evidence to the court. And we show Kamau that the biggest mistake he ever made was underestimating the boring emotional accountant he threw away. But as we drove back to the hotel, my phone buzzed with a message that wiped the smile off my face. It was a video of Njeri, crying, asking for me, and underneath, a message from Kamau. Your daughter misses you. Too bad you chose revenge over being a mother. When the judge asks Njeri who she wants to live with, what do you think she'll say after you've been absent for days? I watched my daughter's tears and felt my resolve harden into something diamond sharp. Kamau thought he was playing chess. He had no idea I was about to flip the entire board. What would you do if someone used your child as a weapon? Comment below, and if you think Akinyi is about to unleash something major, Hit that like button and subscribe to Tales by Ola. Share this story with someone who needs to see what happens when a mother's love meets a billionaire's resources. The emergency custody hearing was scheduled for Monday morning, just 4 days after Kamau had thrown me out of my own home. Sarah Harrison had moved fast, filing motions that painted Kamau's behavior as parental alienation and emotional manipulation. But as I sat in my hotel suite Sunday evening, preparing for court, doubt gnawed at me. What if the judge sided with Kamau? What if they believed I really was unstable for leaving my father's funeral? What if I lost Jerry? My phone rang. My mother. Akinyi, stop worrying. I can hear it in your silence even over the phone. How did you? I'm your mother, I always know. Her voice softened. You're going to win tomorrow. You have evidence, you have the best lawyer in Nairobi, and most importantly, you have the truth. But what if that's not enough? Kamau has been with Jerry all week. He's had time to influence her, to make her think I abandoned her. Then you remind the judge that you were thrown out, that you've been fighting to get back to your daughter since the moment he forced you to leave. Akinyi, you are not the villain in this story, no matter what Kamau tries to claim. After we hung up, I pulled out my father's letter and read it again, drawing strength from his words. Don't just survive what's coming, win, completely and thoroughly. Tomorrow, I would start winning. Monday morning arrived with typical Nairobi traffic and gray skies threatening rain. I dressed carefully in a conservative navy suit, minimal jewelry, my hair pulled back in a neat bun. Sarah had coached me. Look like a responsible professional mother, not a grieving widow or a vengeful ex-wife. We want the judge to see stability. The Millimini law courts were already busy when we arrived at 8:30 a.m. for our 9 a.m. hearing. Sarah met me at the entrance with her associate, a sharp young lawyer named Mercy. Ready? Sarah asked. As ready as I'll ever be. We walked through security and up to courtroom 4B, where family court judge Catherine Mwangi presided. Judge Mwangi had a reputation for being tough but fair, impatient with lawyers who wasted her time, and fiercely protective of children's interests. Kamau was already there with his lawyer, David Kiplagat, an expensive attorney known for representing wealthy men in messy divorces. Kamau wore his best suit and an expression of concerned fatherhood that made me want to scream. Wanjiku sat in the gallery behind him, her hand resting possessively on his shoulder until she saw me looking and quickly withdrew it. All rise for the Honorable Judge Catherine Mwangi, the bailiff called. Judge Mwangi entered, a woman in her late 50s with silver-streaked hair beneath her judicial wig and eyes that missed nothing. She took her seat and surveyed the courtroom with a critical gaze. This is an emergency custody hearing regarding the minor child Jerry Akinyi Kamau, age 6, she began. Mr. Kiplagat, you filed the emergency motion. Explain to me why this child's custody situation is such an emergency that it requires my immediate attention on a Monday morning. Kiplagat stood smoothly. Your Honor, Mrs. Kamau abandoned her family on the day of her father's funeral. She left the burial service abruptly, refused to return home, and has been estranged from her daughter for 6 days. My client, Mr. Kamau, has been the sole caretaker during this time and is concerned about Mrs. Kamau's mental stability and her ability to provide appropriate care for their daughter. Mrs. Kamau abandoned her family, or she left after discovering her husband's infidelity? Judge Mwangi asked dryly. Kiplagat faltered. Your Honor, there are allegations of infidelity, but they're unsubstantiated. Are they? Sarah Harrison stood, placing a tablet on the judge's bench. Your Honor, I've submitted video evidence, time-stamped and verified, showing Mr. Kamau engaged in an extramarital affair with Mrs. Kamau's cousin, Wanjiku Muthoni. The affair has been ongoing for approximately 2 years. The evidence shows that on the day of Mrs. Kamau's father's funeral, while she was at the graveside, Mr. Kamau and Miss Muthoni were engaged in intimate relations in the marital home. Judge Mwangi's expression darkened as she reviewed the tablet. Mr. Kiplagat, you claim these allegations were unsubstantiated. Your Honor, the authenticity of these videos has not been established. The videos were recorded by a private investigator hired by Mrs. Kamau's late father, Sarah continued. We have the investigator here to testify if needed. along with the original files and metadata proving they haven't been altered. Additionally, we have audio recordings of Mr. Kamau and Ms. Muthoni discussing their affair and their plans to remove Mrs. Kamau from her home and her daughter's life. I'd like to hear those recordings, Judge Mwangi said. Sarah played 3 audio clips. The courtroom was silent except for Kamau and Wanjiku's voices discussing how to manage the Akinyi problem, how to make me look unstable, how to ensure Kamau got full custody while leaving me with nothing. By the 3rd clip, Judge Mwangi's jaw was tight with barely contained anger. Mr. Kiplagat, your client seems to have spent considerable time and effort planning to remove his wife from his life, rather than addressing issues in his marriage like an adult. Your Honor, marital problems don't negate my client's capability as a father. They do when those marital problems include bringing his mistress into the home where his daughter lives and plotting to alienate the child from her mother. Judge Mwangi turned to Kamau. Mr. Kamau, stand up. Kamau rose, suddenly looking less confident. Did you or did you not engage in an extramarital affair with your wife's cousin while your wife was grieving her father? Your Honor, the marriage was already troubled. That's not what I asked. Yes or no? Did you have an affair? A long pause. Yes, Your Honor. And did you attempt to remove Mrs. Kamau from your daughter's school contact list and replace her with your mistress? I was trying to provide stability. Yes or no, Mr. Kamau? Yes. And did you send your wife a video of your daughter crying and use that to taunt her about being an absent mother? Kamau's lawyer whispered urgently in his ear. Your Honor, my client doesn't recall. I have the text message, Sarah said, presenting her phone. Sent from Mr. Kamau's number to Mrs. Kamau's number, with a video attachment and a message that reads, Your daughter misses you. Too bad you chose revenge over being a mother. When the judge asks Njeri who she wants to live with, what do you think she'll say after you've been absent for days? Judge Mwangi read the message, her expression growing colder. Mr. Kamau, you weaponized your daughter's distress to emotionally manipulate your wife. Do you understand how inappropriate that is? I was angry. You were cruel. There's a difference. She turned to me. Mrs. Kamau, please stand. I stood, my heart pounding. Why did you leave your father's funeral early? Your Honor, I received a video showing my husband and my cousin together in my home while I was at my father's graveside. I was devastated and needed to confirm what I'd seen. When I arrived home, they were still there. My husband then informed me that he and my cousin were in love, that my marriage was over, and that I needed to leave immediately. He'd already packed my belongings. And you left? I didn't feel I had a choice, Your Honor. The house is in my husband's name. He made it clear I was no longer welcome. I was in shock, grieving my father and trying to process that my marriage had just ended and my cousin had betrayed me. I left because I couldn't think clearly enough to fight. Have you been trying to see your daughter since you left? Yes, Your Honor. I've called every day. I've asked to visit. My husband has denied all requests, claiming I'm unstable and that Njeri needs protection from me. Mrs. Kamau, do you have a history of mental illness, substance abuse, or violence? No, Your Honor. I'm an accountant. I've worked at the same firm for 8 years with excellent performance reviews. I've never been arrested, never been involuntarily committed, never had any involvement with Child Protective Services. The only thing I'm guilty of is trusting my husband and my cousin and grieving my father. Judge Mwangi was quiet for a long moment, reviewing the documents before her. Finally, she spoke. This is one of the more disturbing cases I've seen in recent months. Mr. Kamau, you systematically betrayed your wife, planned to remove her from her home and child's life, and then used your daughter as an emotional weapon when your wife rightfully sought legal recourse. Your behavior shows remarkably poor judgment and a troubling willingness to prioritize your romantic interests over your daughter's emotional well-being. Your Honor, Kiplagat tried to interject. I'm not finished. Mrs. Kamau, while I understand your distress at discovering your husband's infidelity, leaving your father's funeral early does show a momentary lapse in judgment. However, given the circumstances, discovering graphic evidence of betrayal while grieving your father, your reaction was understandable, even if not ideal. She looked between us both. Here's my ruling. Mrs. Kamau will have primary physical custody of Njeri, effective immediately. Mr. Kamau will have supervised visitation twice a week, supervised by a court-appointed social worker, until we can establish that his relationship with Ms. Mathoni is not being conducted in a manner that exposes Njeri to inappropriate situations. Your Honor, that's outrageous, Kamau burst out. Sit down, Mr. Kamau. I'm not done. Judge Mwangi's voice was ice. Furthermore, Mr. Kamau is ordered to return all of Mrs. Kamau's personal property, including important documents, within 48 hours. Mrs. Kamau is granted the right to enter the marital home with a police escort to collect any additional belongings. A full custody hearing will be scheduled for 6 weeks from now, at which point we'll determine permanent custody arrangements. Until then, Mr. Kamau, you will not contact Mrs. Kamau except through lawyers, you will not badmouth her to your daughter, and you will not attempt to alienate Njeri from her mother. If I hear of any violations, I will hold you in contempt. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor, Kamau said through gritted teeth. Mrs. Kamau, Njeri is currently at the home of Mr. Kamau's mother in Kilaleshwa. You may collect her today. I'm providing you with a court order to that effect. Thank you, Your Honor, I managed, my voice thick with emotion. One more thing. Judge Mwangi looked at Wanjiku in the gallery. Ms. Muthoni, please stand. Wanjiku stood slowly, looking nervous for the first time. While you're not a party to this custody case, I want you to understand something clearly. If I hear that you've been present during Mr. Kamau's supervised visitations, or that you've had any contact with this child, or that you've made any attempts to insert yourself into this family's affairs, I will hold you in contempt as well. This child has been through enough without watching her father's mistress attempt to replace her mother. Stay away from this family. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor, Wanjiku whispered, her face pale. Good. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down with a crack that felt like thunder. I stood frozen, unable to fully process what had just happened. Sarah gripped my arm, smiling widely. You won, she said. You got your daughter back. I got my daughter back, I repeated, and suddenly I was crying. Huge, gasping sobs of relief and joy and grief all mixed together. My mother appeared from somewhere in the gallery and wrapped me in her arms while my brother stood guard, making sure Kamau didn't approach. Across the courtroom, Kamau stood with his lawyer, his face mottled with rage. Wanjiku had already fled, unable to face the public humiliation of being called out by a judge in open court. This isn't over, Kamau said loudly enough for everyone to hear. I'm appealing this ruling. No judge is going to let you take my daughter based on some trumped-up charges and manipulated evidence. Mr. Kamau, Judge Mwangi said sharply, still on the bench, I strongly suggest you stop talking before you make things worse for yourself. He left without another word, Kiplagat hurrying after him. Come on, Sarah said. Let's get you to Kilaleshwa to pick up Njeri. The drive to Kamau's mother's house took 30 minutes through Nairobi's midday traffic. I spent the entire drive trying to calm my racing heart, trying to figure out what I would say to my daughter after 6 days apart. Kamau's mother, Grace Wanjiru, answered the door with a carefully neutral expression. She'd never particularly liked me. I wasn't Kikuyu like her son. I wasn't from a wealthy family. I'd trapped her son with a pregnancy early in our relationship. Never mind that Kamau had been equally involved in creating that pregnancy. But she loved her granddaughter, and I hoped that would be enough. Grace, I said formally, presenting the court order, Judge Mwangi has ruled that I have primary custody of Njeri. I'm here to take her home. Grace read the order, her lips tightening. Kamau called me. He said you manipulated the judge with fake evidence. The evidence isn't fake. Your son has been having an affair for 2 years. He threw me out of my home on the day of my father's funeral, and he tried to keep me from my daughter. Judge Mwangi saw through his lies. Now please, I'd like to see Njeri. She's watching TV in the living room. Grace stepped aside reluctantly. But Akinyi, if you hurt that child, if you use her to get back at my son, I would never hurt my daughter, unlike your son, who used her tears to taunt me. I walked past her into the house. Njeri was curled up on the sofa watching cartoons, her favorite stuffed elephant clutched in her arms. She looked small and sad, dark circles under her eyes that suggested she hadn't been sleeping well. Njeri, I said softly. She turned and her face lit up like sunshine breaking through clouds. Mama! She launched herself off the sofa and into my arms, nearly knocking me over with the force of her hug. I held her tight, breathing in the familiar scent of her hair, feeling her small body shake with sobs. "Mama, I thought you weren't coming back," she cried into my shoulder. "Daddy said you had to go away because you were sick and you couldn't take care of me anymore." "I'm not sick, baby. I was never sick. Daddy and I had a big fight and he asked me to leave for a little while. But I never stopped wanting to be with you. Never. I've been fighting every single day to come back to you. Can I come home with you now?" "Yes, right now. We're going home." "To our house?" I hesitated. "Not to that house. We're going to stay with Grandmother Karyuki for a little while, and then Mama's going to find us a new house. A better house. Just for you and me. Would you like that?" She nodded against my shoulder, still clinging tight. I looked up to find Grace Wanjiru watching us, her expression conflicted. "Grace, thank you for taking care of her this week. I know Kamal put you in a difficult position." "She's my granddaughter. I'll always take care of her." Grace paused. "But Akinyi, Kamau is my son. I can't choose between you." "I'm not asking you to. I'm just asking you to love Njeri and support what's best for her, not what's best for Kamau's pride or ego." Grace didn't respond, but something in her eyes softened slightly. I gathered Njeri's things, her backpack, her elephant, the clothes Kamau had packed for her, and walked out of that house feeling lighter than I had in days. My daughter was in my arms. The court had ruled in my favor. Justice, for once, had prevailed. But as we drove away, I saw Kamau's car parked down the street. He'd been waiting, watching. When our eyes met through the windows, I saw something in his expression that sent a chill down my spine. This wasn't acceptance. This wasn't defeat. This was a man plotting his next move. My phone buzzed as we turned the corner. A text from an unknown number. "Congratulations on winning custody, but you haven't won the war. I know about your inheritance now. Everyone will soon. And when they do, you'll see how many friends you suddenly have. Watch your back, cousin. Wanjiku." I deleted the message and focused on my daughter, who was chattering happily about missing me and wanting to show me her drawings. But Wanjiku's warning echoed in my mind. My inheritance wasn't a secret anymore. Kamau and Wanjiku knew, which meant soon everyone would know. And when they did, I'd need to be ready for the chaos that followed. We arrived at my mother's house in Kiambu just as the afternoon rain started. My mother was waiting at the door, and when she saw Njeri, she burst into tears of joy. "My grandbaby, come here. Let Bibi hold you." While Njeri settled in with my mother, I stepped outside to call Mr. Omondi. "Akinyi, I heard about the custody ruling. Congratulations." "Thank you. But Mr. Omondi, there's a problem. Kamau and Wanjiku know about my inheritance. I don't know how they found out, but they're threatening to make it public." "It's already public," Mr. Omondi said grimly. "Your brother's inheritance became part of public record when the will was probated. A journalist did some digging, put the pieces together, and published an article this afternoon. Coffee exporter's secret billion-dollar empire revealed is trending across Kenyan social media right now." My heart sank. "So everyone knows?" "Everyone knows you and your brothers inherited significant wealth. The exact amounts aren't public, but there's speculation. Akinyi, you need to prepare. Your phone is about to be flooded with calls from people you haven't spoken to in years, all suddenly wanting to reconnect." He was right. Even as we spoke, my phone started buzzing incessantly. Old classmates, distant relatives, former colleagues, people I barely remembered suddenly desperate to get in touch. And then, one call that made my blood run cold. "Kamau." I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. "What do you want, Kamau?" "I want to apologize." His voice was smooth, conciliatory. Nothing like the rage I'd seen in court that morning. "Akinyi, I've been thinking about everything. And you're right. I handled things badly. The affair, the way I treated you, trying to keep Njeri from you, it was all wrong." "What's your angle, Kamau?" "No angle. I saw the article about your father's estate. I had no idea he was that successful. And I realized I threw away 8 years with a woman whose family has that kind of legacy. I made a terrible mistake. So now that you know I'm wealthy, you want me back? I want us to try again. For Njeri's sake, she needs both her parents together, not fighting in court. We can work this out, Akinyi. We can be a family again. I laughed, actually laughed. Let me understand this correctly. You had an affair for 2 years. You threw me out of my house on the day I buried my father. You tried to take my daughter from me. You sent me videos of her crying to manipulate me. But now that you know I inherited money, suddenly you want to reconcile? I know how it sounds, but you know how it sounds because that's exactly what it is. You're not sorry, Kamau. You're greedy. You thought I'd always be the boring accountant with no resources to fight back. Now you've realized I have more money than you'll ever see in your lifetime, and you want access to it. That's not true. Goodbye, Kamau. See you in divorce court. I hung up and immediately called Sarah Harrison. Kamau just called trying to reconcile now that he knows about my inheritance. I'd expect nothing less. He'll probably file motions to delay the divorce, claiming you both need time for marriage counseling. It's a classic stalling tactic. The longer you're married, the more he can argue he's entitled to your assets. Can he delay it? Not if we move fast. I'm filing an expedited divorce petition tomorrow, citing irreconcilable differences and infidelity with evidence. In Kenya, if one spouse proves adultery, the divorce can be finalized relatively quickly. We'll have you free of him in months, not years. Do it. I want him out of my life completely. Consider it done. That night I lay in bed with Nyeri curled up beside me, her small hand gripping mine even in sleep. Through the window I could hear Nairobi's night sounds, dogs barking, music playing, the distant hum of traffic. My phone buzzed one more time. Another text from Wanjiku. You think you've won, but you've just made yourself a target. Wealthy women make dangerous enemies. Ask your father. Oh, wait, you can't. He's dead. I stared at that message for a long time, the cruelty of bringing up my father's death making my hands shake with fury. But then I remembered something my father had written in his letter. Make them regret ever underestimating you. Wanjiku thought she was threatening me. She had no idea she'd just given me the final push I needed to stop playing defense and start playing offense. Tomorrow I would make some calls, use some resources, show my cousin and my soon-to-be ex-husband that betraying me hadn't just been wrong. It had been the biggest mistake of their lives. But tonight, I held my daughter and let myself feel victorious for the first time since my world had fallen apart. I had my daughter back, I had my father's legacy, and I had something Kamau and Wanjiku would never have: integrity. The war wasn't over, but I'd won the first major battle, and I was just getting started. What do you think Akinyi should do to Kamau and Wanjiku next? Drop your thoughts below. If you're loving this revenge story, smash that like button and subscribe to Tales by Ola. Hit that notification bell because the next chapter is going to be explosive. Share this with everyone who's ever been betrayed and needed to see justice served. 3 weeks after winning custody, I stood in the lobby of the Kempinski Hotel in Nairobi, waiting for a meeting that would change everything. My reflection in the polished marble floor showed a woman transformed, designer suit, expensive handbag, confidence radiating from every pore. I barely recognized myself. The inheritance had been officially transferred. $840 million sat in various accounts and investments, managed by a team of financial advisors Mr. Amandi had assembled. I'd quit my accounting job, much to my boss's shock, and was now focused on learning how to manage my father's business empire and being a full-time mother to Nyeri. But today's meeting wasn't about business. It was about revenge. Mrs. Kariuki, a woman approached, mid-40s, sharply dressed, carrying a leather portfolio. I'm Detective Janet Ochieng, Private Investigations. Thank you for meeting with me. We moved to a private conference room the hotel had reserved. Once the door closed, Janet spread several folders across the table. You asked me to investigate your husband's business dealings and your cousin's background. What I found is extensive. Show me everything. Janet opened the first folder. Kamau's logistics company is worse off than your brother initially discovered. He owes 8 million shillings to creditors, yes. But there's more. He's been embezzling from client accounts to keep the business afloat. Small amounts, carefully hidden in the bookkeeping, but over the past 18 months, he's stolen approximately 12 million shillings from 3 major clients. I felt my eyes widen. He's been stealing? Yes, And if his clients discover it, which they will once auditors look closely, he'll face criminal charges. Fraud, embezzlement, breach of fiduciary duty. He could go to prison for 10 years minimum. Do his clients know? Not yet, but one of them is scheduled for a routine audit next month. The auditors will find the discrepancies. Janet pulled out more documents. There's also the matter of his loans. He took out 3 personal loans using the marital home as collateral. You said the house is in his name? Yes. Then technically, he had the legal right to use it as collateral. But Mrs. Kariuki, one of those loans is from a very dangerous lender, a man named Francis Otieno, who operates outside legitimate banking systems. Street loans with massive interest rates. Kamau owes him 4 million shillings due in 2 months. If he doesn't pay, Francis doesn't go to court. He takes what he's owed through other means. A chill ran through me. You mean violence? Francis has a reputation. People who don't pay him end up hospitalized or worse. And Mrs. Kariuki, because you were married when Kamau took that loan, Francis might consider you liable as well. But I didn't sign anything. Francis doesn't care about paperwork. He cares about money. In his view, your husband took his money, so your family owes him. The divorce won't protect you in his eyes. I sat back, processing this. Kamau's desperation to reconcile suddenly made more sense. He didn't just want access to my inheritance for greed. He needed it to save his own life. What about Wanjiku? I asked. Janet opened another folder with a grim expression. Your cousin has a history. She's been involved in at least 3 other affairs with married men over the past 5 years. In each case, she targeted men with resources, money, property, connections. She's essentially a professional homewrecker, though she's careful never to break any laws. The pattern is always the same. Befriend the wife, seduce the husband, convince him his marriage is unhappy, help him divorce his wife, then move on to the next target once she's extracted maximum benefit. How did I not know this? She's good at hiding it. She reinvents herself in different cities, uses different social circles. But I tracked down 2 of the previous wives. They're willing to testify about her pattern of behavior if needed. Both women lost custody battles because Wanjiku had been systematically documenting things to make the wives look unstable. The same thing she tried with you. I thought about all the times Wanjiku had visited, had listened to me complain about my marriage, had offered sympathetic advice. She'd been gathering ammunition the entire time. There's one more thing, Janet said quietly. I investigated your father's death. My head snapped up. What? Why? He had cancer. He did. But Mrs. Kariuki, the cancer should have given him at least another 6 months according to his oncologist. Instead, he deteriorated rapidly in his final 3 weeks. The hospital ran a toxicology screen after he died, standard procedure, and found elevated levels of a substance that shouldn't have been there. Nothing definitively poisonous, but enough to accelerate his decline. The room spun. Are you saying someone poisoned my father? I'm saying the hospital had questions they never pursued because the family was grieving, and it would have required an invasive investigation. But Mrs. Kariuki, your father changed his will 6 months before he died, right after he started investigating Kamau. And 3 weeks before he died, Wanjiku visited him in the hospital several times. The nurses remember because she was so attentive, bringing him special teas and soups. I couldn't breathe. Wanjiku killed my father? I can't prove it. The evidence is circumstantial, but the timing is suspicious. If your father lived another 6 months, he would have had time to warn you about Kamau, to prepare you for what was coming. Instead, he died quickly. You were thrust into grief and vulnerability, and Kamau and Wanjiku made their move while you were weakest. I stood up abruptly, pacing the conference room. My father, my kind, generous father, who'd protected me even in death, had he been murdered? By my own cousin. What can we do? I asked, my voice shaking. Can we prove this? We'd need an exhumation and a full autopsy, but that would be traumatic for your family and might not yield conclusive results. Mrs. Kariuki, I'm telling you this so you understand what you're dealing with. Wanjiku isn't just a woman who had an affair. She's calculating, dangerous, and willing to hurt anyone who stands between her and what she wants. I sank back into my chair, my mind reeling. Everything I thought I knew kept shifting, revealing darker layers beneath. What do you recommend I do? Janet leaned forward. You have resources now. Use them. Document everything. Protect yourself and Jerry. And Mrs. Karaoke? Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying someone. It's making sure they destroy themselves. After Janet left, I sat alone in the conference room for a long time. My phone buzzed repeatedly, probably more requests from distant relatives wanting to reconnect now that I was wealthy, but I ignored it. Finally, I made a call to Karaoke, my brother. Sister, how's Jerry settling in? She's good, happy, but Karaoke, I need your help with something. Something that might be dangerous. Name it. I told him everything Janet had discovered, the embezzlement, the loan shark, the suspicions about our father's death. By the time I finished, my brother's breathing was ragged with rage. If Wanjiku killed Papa. We don't know that for certain, but Karaoke, I need you to do something. Francis Otieno, the loan shark Kamau owes money to, I need you to find him. Talk to him. Let him know that Kamau's wife has divorced him, that I'm not responsible for his debts, and that if Francis has a problem, he should take it up with Kamau alone. You want me to sick a loan shark on Kamau? I want to make sure Francis knows I'm not a target. And if that means Kamau has to face the consequences of his own bad decisions alone, so be it. A pause. When did you become this ruthless? When I watched my husband betray me, my cousin possibly murder my father, and both of them try to take my daughter. I'm not being ruthless, Karaoke. I'm protecting my family. All right, I'll find Francis Otieno. What else? Kamau's clients, the ones he's been embezzling from. I want to anonymously tip off their audit departments. Make sure they look extra closely at their accounts with Kamau's company. You want him arrested for fraud? I want him to face justice for his crimes. He stole money, just like he stole my security and my trust. Why should he walk away from any of it? Consider it done. Anything else? Yes. I need you to help me find the two women Wanjiku targeted before me. The ones whose lives she ruined. I want to talk to them. What are you planning, Akinyi? I'm planning to make sure Wanjiku never does to anyone else what she did to me. 2 days later, I sat in a coffee shop in Westlands across from two women, Rose and Jerry and Miriam Wambui. Both were in their 30s. Both had been married to wealthy men. Both had lost everything when Wanjiku entered their lives. Thank you for meeting me, I said. I know this must be difficult. Rose spoke first, her voice bitter. When I heard Wanjiku had done it again, I wanted to warn you, but I didn't know how to reach you, and honestly, I didn't think you'd believe me. No one ever believes until it's too late. Tell me what happened to you. Rose's story was painfully familiar. Wanjiku had befriended her at a church event, slowly inserted herself into Rose's life, then seduced Rose's husband while documenting everything that made Rose look like a bad wife. Her struggles with postpartum depression, her emotional reactions to her husband's distance, her desperate attempts to save her marriage. By the time Rose realized what was happening, she'd lost custody of her two sons, and her husband had remarried, not to Wanjiku, who'd moved on to her next target, but to someone else while Rose was left broken and alone. She took everything from me, Rose said, tears streaming down her face. My husband, my children, my reputation. Everyone thought I was crazy, unstable. It took me 3 years and 2 more custody hearings to get shared custody back. 3 years of my children growing up without me. Miriam's story was even worse. Wanjiku didn't just destroy my marriage. She destroyed my business. I owned a boutique in Kilimani, successful, profitable. But Wanjiku convinced my husband that I was having an affair with my business partner. She manufactured evidence, fake text messages, fabricated photos. My husband believed her, divorced me, and in the settlement, he got half my business. He sold his share to my partner's competitor, who drove us out of business. I lost everything, marriage, business, reputation, all because of Wanjiku. Did you ever try to expose her? I asked. Of course, Miriam said. I hired investigators, tried to track down other victims, attempted to go public with what she'd done. But Wanjiku is smart. She never breaks any laws. She never leaves clear evidence, and she always moves to a new city before anyone can piece together her pattern. By the time I had enough information to prove what she'd done, she was gone, and no one cared anymore. She's been doing this for at least 5 years that we know of, Rose added. Maybe longer. How many women has she destroyed? How many families has she torn apart? And she just keeps doing it because no one stops her. I looked at both women, survivors like me, warriors who'd fought their way back from devastation, and made a decision. I'm going to stop her, I said, not just for me, but for all of us, and for every woman she might target in the future. How? Miriam asked skeptically. She's too careful. You can't prove anything criminal. I don't need to prove anything criminal. I just need to make sure everyone knows exactly who she is and what she does. Her power comes from secrecy, from being able to reinvent herself in new communities. Here, what if we take that away? I pulled out my laptop and showed them what I'd been working on, a website documenting Wanjiku's pattern of behavior, photos of her with different men, testimony from her victims, a timeline of her movements across Kenya. Everything carefully worded to avoid libel while making the pattern impossible to ignore. You're going to destroy her reputation, Rose breathed. I'm going to make sure she can't hide anymore. Every future target will be able to Google her name and find this. Every woman she tries to befriend will know what she's really after. She won't be able to operate in the shadows anymore. She'll sue you for defamation, Miriam warned. Let her try. Everything on this site is documented and verifiable. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation. And Miriam, Rose, will you both go on record? Tell your stories publicly? They exchanged glances. Finally, Rose nodded. Yes. If it means saving even one woman from what we went through, yes. I'm in too, Miriam said. Wanjiku needs to face consequences for once in her life. That evening, I sat with my mother and brothers in my new home, a beautiful 4-bedroom house in Runda I'd purchased 2 weeks ago. It wasn't as large as some of the mansions in the neighborhood, but it was safe, comfortable, and most importantly, mine. Jerry loved her new room with its princess decorations and the garden where she could play. I need to tell you all something, I said once Jerry was in bed. Something about Papa's death. I shared everything Janet had discovered. The elevated toxins, Wanjiku's suspicious visits, the timing of it all. My mother went pale. You think she killed my husband? I don't know, Mama, but the timing is suspicious enough that I can't ignore it. We should exhume the body, Mwangi said immediately. Do a full autopsy. Find out the truth. And put Mama through that trauma? I asked gently. Dig up Papa's body, cut it open, spend months waiting for results that might not be conclusive? Even if we found something, it would be nearly impossible to prove Wanjiku was responsible. She'd claim the hospital provided the substances, or that Papa took them himself, or that it was a tragic accident. So we do nothing? Kariuki's voice was hard. If she murdered our father, we do something, I interrupted, but we do it strategically. Kariuki, have you found Francis Otieno? Yes, I met with him yesterday. He was very interested to learn that Kamau is about to be divorced and that his soon-to-be ex-wife is a billionaire who wants nothing to do with him. And Francis agreed that you're not responsible for Kamau's debts, but he also made it clear that Kamau's payment is due in 6 weeks, and if Kamau doesn't have the money, Francis will take it out of Kamau's hide. Good. What about the embezzlement? I sent anonymous tips to all 3 companies Kamau has been stealing from. Their audits are being moved up. He'll be exposed within the month. I nodded, feeling pieces click into place. And the website about Wanjiku? Ready to launch whenever you give the word, Mwangi confirmed. He'd been helping me build and host it. But Akinyi, are you sure about this? Once it's public, there's no taking it back. Wanjiku will know you're behind it. Let her know. Let her understand that destroying me was the worst mistake she ever made. When do you want to launch it? My mother asked quietly. Tomorrow. The same day Kamau's audit results come back and he realizes his business is finished. I want them both to understand at the same time that I'm not a victim anymore. I'm a force. My phone buzzed. A text from Kamau. Akinyi, please. I need to talk to you. Face to face. It's urgent. I'm begging you. I showed the message to my family. Kariuki laughed harshly. He must have heard about the audits. He's panicking. Should I meet with him? I asked. Why would you? My mother said. He has nothing you need. Maybe not, but I want to see his face when he realizes I know everything. I want to watch him understand that he's lost. Then take security, Mwangi insisted. If he's desperate enough, he might try something. I'll bring Sergeant Amandi. My father's former security chief had agreed to work for me, providing personal protection now that I was a public figure. Kamau won't try anything with witnesses around. The next morning I met Kamau at a restaurant in Karen, public, safe, with Sergeant Omondi at a nearby table watching everything. Kamau looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes, his expensive suit rumpled, his hands shaking as he gripped his coffee cup. Thank you for meeting me, he said. I wasn't sure you would. I'm here. Say what you need to say. I need your help, Akinyi. My business is being audited, and there are some irregularities, minor accounting errors, nothing serious. But nothing serious? I interrupted. You've embezzled 12 million shillings from your clients, Kamau. That's not a minor accounting error. That's fraud. His face went white. How did you? I know everything. The embezzlement, the loan from Francis Otieno, the fact that you're going to be arrested for fraud within the week. I know all of it. You have to help me, he said desperately. You have money now. More money than I could steal in a lifetime. You could pay back what I took, settle things with Francis, make this all go away. Why would I do that? Because I'm Jerry's father. If I go to prison, she'll grow up without a father. Do you want that for our daughter? You should have thought about Njeri before you committed crimes, before you had an affair, before you threw me out and tried to steal her from me. I leaned forward. Kamau, you destroyed our family, not me, you. These are the consequences of your choices. Please, he whispered, I'll lose everything. My business, my house, my freedom. They'll take it all. Good, maybe then you'll understand how I felt when you took everything from me. I stood to leave. Oh, and Kamau? Francis Otieno knows we're divorced. He knows I'm not responsible for your debts. So whatever happens when you can't pay him, that's between you and him. Leave me out of it. Akinyi, wait. But I was already walking away, Sergeant Omondi falling into step beside me. Behind me, I heard Kamau's sob of despair, and I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt, no pity. Just cold, clear certainty that justice was finally being served. My phone rang as I reached my car. Sarah Harrison. Akinyi, I have news. Kamau's lawyer just filed a motion to delay the divorce, citing his financial hardship and claiming he needs time to resolve his business issues before he can negotiate a fair settlement. Deny it. He's trying to drag things out so he can claim entitlement to my assets. Don't let him. Already done. I filed a counter motion citing his criminal behavior and arguing that his financial problems are self-inflicted and not grounds for delay. The judge ruled in our favor. Divorce proceeds as scheduled. Thank you, Sarah. One more thing. Wanjiku has been calling my office repeatedly, asking to speak with you. She claims she has information about Kamau that would help your case. She's trying to save herself by betraying him. Tell her I'm not interested in anything she has to say. Will do. But Akinyi, be careful. Desperate people do desperate things, and both Kamau and Wanjiku are running out of options. As I drove home, I thought about desperation, about consequences, about the price of betrayal. Kamau would face criminal charges for his embezzlement. He would face Francis Otieno's wrath when he couldn't pay his debt. He would lose his business, probably his house, possibly his freedom. And Wanjiku, tomorrow when the website went live, she would lose the only thing she'd ever valued, her ability to reinvent herself and prey on new victims. Was this revenge? Justice? Both? I didn't know anymore. I just knew that I'd started this fight not by choice, but by necessity, and I was going to finish it. That night, after putting Jerry to bed, I sat at my computer and pressed publish on the website Mwangi had built. The real Wanjiku Muthoni, a pattern of domestic betrayal and infidelity, went live at 11 p.m., complete with testimony, photos, and a clear warning to any woman who encountered Wanjiku in the future. Within an hour, it had been shared across social media. Within 3 hours, it was trending on Kenyan Twitter. By morning, it had been picked up by blogs and news sites. My phone exploded with messages. Most were supportive, women thanking me for exposing Wanjiku, sharing their own stories of betrayal, celebrating that someone was finally holding a serial homewrecker accountable. But one message stood out. From Wanjiku. You're going to regret this. I promise you, Akinyi. You're going to regret ever coming after me. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I blocked her number and went to bed. Let her threaten. Let her rage. I'd survived her worst already, and I was still standing. The question was, would she survive mine? Do you think Akinyi went too far? Or did Kamau and Wanjiku deserve everything coming to them? Comment your honest thoughts. And if you're on Team Akinyi, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell for Tales by Ola. Share this with everyone who needs to see that betrayal has consequences. We're almost at the end of this story, and trust me, you don't want to miss how it ends. The death threats started 3 days after the website went live. First, messages on social media, anonymous accounts telling me to watch my back, to be careful where I walked, that I'd made a dangerous enemy. Then emails to my personal address, detailed and graphic descriptions of what would happen to me if I didn't take down the site. Finally, a phone call at 2 a.m. that woke me from a dead sleep. You think you're untouchable because you have money? The voice was distorted, unrecognizable. Money can't save you from everything. Ask your father. Oh, wait, you can't, because he's dead. The line went dead before I could respond. I immediately called Sergeant Amandi, who arrived at my house within 20 minutes with 2 additional security personnel. Mrs. Karaoke, this is escalating, he said after reviewing the threats. We need to increase your security detail and consider police protection as well. You think Wanjiku would actually try to hurt me? I think Wanjiku is a woman who's just lost everything. Her reputation, her ability to operate, her future prospects. The website has been shared thousands of times. Her face is all over social media with the label serial homewrecker. She can't work, can't date, can't go anywhere without being recognized and confronted. That kind of desperation makes people dangerous. He was right. The website had been even more successful than I'd anticipated. News outlets had picked up the story, running features about professional mistresses and women who targeted marriages for financial gain. Wanjiku had been forced to delete all her social media accounts after being bombarded with hate messages. According to Janet Ochieng's sources, Wanjiku had lost her job. She'd been working at an upscale boutique whose owner didn't appreciate the negative publicity. Even her landlord had asked her to leave, not wanting the drama affecting other tenants. I destroyed her life completely, and now she was striking back the only way she could. Double the security, I told Sergeant Amandi, and install additional cameras around the property. I won't let her intimidate me, but I won't be reckless either. I have Nigeri to think about. After he left, I couldn't sleep. I paced my bedroom, looking out at the darkened garden, wondering if someone was out there watching, planning, waiting. My phone buzzed, a text from Karaoke. Kamau was arrested this morning. Fraud charges. He's being held at Central Police Station pending bail hearing. Finally, some good news. I immediately called Sarah Harrison. I heard, she said, the embezzlement case is solid. Even if he makes bail, he's looking at serious prison time. But Akinyi, this actually helps our divorce case. A husband facing criminal charges for financial fraud? The judge will finalize the divorce quickly to protect you from any legal liability associated with his crimes. How quickly? 2 weeks, maybe 3. And custody won't even be a question. Courts don't grant custody to parents facing felony charges. And Jerry stays with you permanently. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt exhausted. Sarah, I'm getting death threats. From Wanjiku, I think, though I can't prove it. Document everything and report it to the police. If Wanjiku violates the restraining order Judge Mwangi issued, she'll be arrested. But Akinyi, you should also consider this. The more public you make your feud with Wanjiku, the more danger you're in. Might be time to step back, let the authorities handle it. Step back and let her terrorize the next woman? No. I'm seeing this through. After hanging up, I made a decision. If Wanjiku wanted war, I'd give her war. But I'd do it smart, with protection and legal backing. The next morning, I filed a formal complaint with the Nairobi police about the threats. Detective Inspector Kamau, no relation to my ex-husband, took my statement personally. Mrs. Karaoke will investigate these threats thoroughly. But I have to be honest. Unless we catch Wanjiku making a threat directly, it's difficult to prove she's behind them. Anonymous accounts and burner phones are designed to hide identity. So she can terrorize me and face no consequences? Not necessarily. We'll monitor her movements, flag her accounts, make sure she knows we're watching. Sometimes that's enough to discourage someone. He paused. Mrs. Karaoke, between you and me, what you did exposing her pattern, that took courage. A lot of women have suffered because of her. You stop that. Don't let her scare you into backing down now. His words gave me strength. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for Rose, Miriam, and every woman Wanjiku had destroyed or might destroy in the future. But that afternoon, things took a darker turn. I was picking up Njeri from her new school when I noticed a car following us. A beat-up blue Toyota with tinted windows, staying 3 cars back but matching every turn I made. My driver, James, noticed too. Madam, we're being followed. How long? Since we left the school. Should I lose them? No. Head toward the police station in Muthaiga. Let's see if they follow us there. They didn't. As soon as we turned toward the police station, the blue Toyota peeled off, disappearing into traffic. But the message was clear. Someone was watching us, tracking our movements, letting us know they could get close anytime they wanted. I filed another report, this time with photographic evidence from James's dashcam. The police promised to investigate, but I could see the skepticism in their eyes. A car following someone through Nairobi's traffic wasn't exactly ironclad proof of stalking. That evening, my entire family gathered at my house for an emergency meeting. My mother, my brothers, Sarah Harrison, Janet Oching, and Sergeant Amondi all crowded into my living room while Njeri played upstairs, oblivious to the crisis swirling around her. This has gone too far, my mother said firmly. Akinyi, I understand wanting justice, but your safety, Njeri's safety, comes first. Take down the website. End this before someone gets hurt. Mama, if I take it down now, Wanjiku wins. She'll know that threats and intimidation work. She'll use that tactic on the next person who tries to expose her. Better she intimidates someone else than she hurts my daughter. Mrs. Karaoke is right about one thing, Janet said quietly. If we back down now, we establish that Wanjiku can silence her victims through fear. But she's also right that the current situation isn't sustainable. Wanjiku's escalating, and escalation means danger. So what do we do? Mwangi asked. We give Wanjiku a way out, Sarah said. Everyone turned to look at her. Right now, Wanjiku has nothing to lose. Her reputation is destroyed. Her income is gone. She's facing social exile. People with nothing to lose are the most dangerous. But what if we gave her something to lose? Something that would make her stop the threats and leave Akinyi alone. Like what? I asked. Money, a settlement. Pay her to disappear. I nearly stood up in outrage. Pay her? After everything she's done? Absolutely not. Hear me out, Sarah continued. Not a large amount. You're not rewarding her. But enough for her to relocate, start over somewhere else, rebuild her life away from Kenya. In exchange, she signs a legally binding agreement to cease all contact with you, to never speak about you publicly, and to leave the country for a minimum of 5 years. If she violates any terms, she returns the money and faces legal consequences. That's basically exile, Karuki said. Exactly. We make her someone else's problem. She gets a chance to start over, and we get peace. I hated the idea. Hated it with every fiber of my being. Wanjiku deserved prison, not a payout. She deserved to suffer the way her victims had suffered. But I looked at my mother's worried face, thought about Njeri upstairs playing innocently, remembered the blue Toyota following us, and recognized the truth. Revenge wasn't worth my daughter's safety. How much are we talking about? I asked reluctantly. 5 million shillings, enough to relocate comfortably and live modestly for a few years while she rebuilds. Not enough to feel like a reward, but enough to be a genuine opportunity. 5 million shillings, about $40,000. Less than I'd spend on security and legal fees if this war continued for months. And the website stays up? I demanded. I'm not erasing the truth about what she did. The website stays, Sarah confirmed. We're not asking you to absolve her or pretend she didn't destroy lives. We're just asking you to give her an incentive to stop threatening yours. I looked around the room. My mother nodded hopefully. My brothers looked skeptical but accepting. Janet and Sergeant Amandi both seemed to think it was a practical solution. Fine, I said finally. Draw up the agreement. But Sarah, make it ironclad. If she violates one word of it, I want her arrested and the money returned immediately. Consider it done. 2 days later, I sat across from Wanjiku for the first time since our Java House meeting. We met at Sarah Harrison's office, with lawyers present and security outside. Wanjiku looked terrible. Her hair was unwashed, her clothes cheap and ill-fitting, her eyes sunken with dark circles. The glamorous woman who'd stolen my husband was gone, replaced by someone defeated and desperate. Why are you doing this? She asked when Sarah presented the settlement offer. You've already destroyed me. Why give me money now? Because I want you gone, I said bluntly. Out of my city, out of my country, out of my life. This isn't forgiveness, Wanjiku. This is me buying my peace and my daughter's safety. Take the money, leave Kenya, and never contact me again. Or don't, and spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder wondering when the next consequence will hit. She read the agreement slowly, her hands shaking. 5 million shillings to leave everything I know? My family, my friends, my home? You destroyed my family, I said coldly. You probably killed my father. You tried to take my daughter and threaten my life. 5 million is more than generous. It's more than you deserve. I didn't kill your father, Wanjiku said, but her voice lacked conviction. Then what was in those teas you brought him? The soups? Why did he deteriorate so quickly after your visits? I was trying to help him. The teas were herbal remedies. From where? Who gave them to you? Silence. That's what I thought, I said. Sign the agreement, Wanjiku. Take the money and disappear, or I'll keep digging until I can prove you murdered my father, and then money won't save you. Prison will be your new home. She signed. Watching her scrawl her signature felt anticlimactic. I'd imagined this moment so many times, seeing Wanjiku broken, defeated, facing consequences. But now that it was happening, I just felt tired. The money will be transferred once you've left the country, Sarah explained. You have 2 weeks to settle your affairs and book a flight. We recommend somewhere far, Europe, Asia, the Americas, anywhere you can truly start fresh. Where am I supposed to go? Wanjiku asked, her voice small. That's not our problem, I said, standing. You have 2 weeks, Wanjiku. If you're still in Kenya after that, the agreement is void and you get nothing. As I walked out, she called after me. Akinyi, wait. I need you to know something about Kamau. I paused at the door. What about him? He knows about your father's money. He knows the exact amount, the accounts, everything. I told him. She looked down at her hands. And he's planning something, even from jail. He contacted someone, I don't know who, but he's not giving up. He thinks if he can prove you're an unfit mother or a danger to yourself, he can still get access to your money through Njeri's trust or inheritance rights. Kamau's going to prison for fraud. He has no power anymore. You don't understand. Kamau doesn't accept defeat, ever. He'll find a way to hurt you, even if it destroys him in the process. She looked up, and for the first time, I saw genuine fear in her eyes. Be careful, Akinyi. Kamau is more dangerous now than he ever was when you were married, because now he has nothing to lose. Her warning echoed in my mind as I left the law office. Kamau, desperate and vengeful, with nothing to lose. That was a dangerous combination. I called Janet immediately. I need you to find out who Kamau has been in contact with from jail. Phone calls, visitors, letters, everything. I'll have the information by tomorrow, Janet promised. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Wanjiku's warning, about the blue Toyota that had followed us, about the death threats and the pattern of escalation. Something was building toward a crisis point. I could feel it. At 3 a.m., my phone rang. Sergeant Amandi. Mrs. Kariuki, there's been an incident. Someone tried to break into your property. Our security team stopped them before they breached the perimeter, but... Is Njeri safe? I interrupted, already running to her room. Everyone is safe. The intruder fled when the alarm sounded. But ma'am, they left something. A message. What kind of message? You need to see it yourself. I'm sending you a photo now. The image loaded on my phone. Spray painted across my front gate in red paint. You'll pay for what you did. And beneath it, a crude drawing of a grave with my name on it. I stared at that image, my hands shaking with rage rather than fear. Enough. This ended now. Sergeant Amandi, call the police. I want a full investigation. I want cameras checked, fingerprints analyzed, everything. And I want round-the-clock security on this property starting tonight. Already arranged, ma'am. I hung up and made another call. To Karaoke. Someone just tried to break into my house, left a death threat on my gate. I'm coming over right now. No, I need you to do something else. I need you to visit Kamau in jail tomorrow. Tell him I know he's behind this. Tell him that if anything happens to me or Jerry, I've arranged for evidence about his crimes. All of them, including ones the police don't know about yet, to be released to every news outlet in Kenya. Tell him I have leverage he doesn't even know about. And if he doesn't call off whatever he's planning, I'll bury him so deep he'll never see daylight again. Akinyi, what evidence? What are you talking about? It doesn't matter if it's real or not. What matters is that Kamau believes I have it. He's gambling that he can intimidate me into backing down or make me look unstable enough that I lose custody. But I'm not backing down, and I'm not losing my daughter. So we're going to make him believe that attacking me is suicide. A pause. When did you become this ruthless? When I realized that being kind and forgiving just gets you destroyed. I tried mercy with Wanjiku. I'm paying her to leave rather than pressing charges for the threats. But Kamau, he doesn't deserve mercy. He deserves exactly what's coming to him. The next morning, I met with my entire security team and laid out new protocols. Jerry's school was informed about the situation and agreed to additional security measures. My mother and brothers were given panic buttons linked directly to my security company. Every entrance to my property was fitted with additional cameras and reinforced locks. I was turning my home into a fortress, and I hated it. Hated that Kamau's vindictiveness had forced me to live this way. Hated that my daughter had to grow up with armed guards and security protocols. But I hated the alternative more, being unprepared when Kamau made his move. Janet called at noon with information about Kamau's jail contacts. He's been visited 3 times by a man named Patrick Mutua. Mutua has a criminal record: assault, intimidation, unlawful detention. He's essentially a thug for hire. So Kamau hired someone to threaten me? More than threaten, Mutua's specialty is making problems disappear, usually through violence. My blood ran cold. You're saying Kamau hired someone to kill me? I'm saying Mutua doesn't take jobs unless the outcome is permanent. And Mrs. Karaoke, there's more. Mutua has been asking questions about Njeri's school, about your routines, about your security. He's planning something, and it involves your daughter. I couldn't breathe. Kamau wasn't just coming after me. He was targeting Njeri, his own daughter. Where is Mutua now? Unknown. He's not at his last known address, and he's not answering his phone. He's gone underground, which usually means he's about to act. I hung up and immediately called Njeri's school. This is Akinyi Karaoke. You need to lock down immediately. There's a credible threat against my daughter. No one picks her up except me personally. Not my driver, not my family, no one. And I'm sending additional security to the school right now. Mrs. Karaoke, what's going on? Just do it, please. I'm on my way. I raced to the school with Sergeant Omondi and 2 other security personnel. My heart didn't stop pounding until I saw Njeri safe in her classroom, oblivious to the danger swirling around her. Mama, she smiled when she saw me. Why are you here? Is it home time already? Not yet, baby, but Mama's going to stay at school with you today. Is that okay? Okay, can you watch me at recess? Of course, my love. I sat in the principal's office for the rest of the day, watching security footage of the school entrances, jumping at every unfamiliar face. This was no way to live. This was no way to raise a child. By 5 p.m., when I finally took Njeri home under heavy security escort, I'd made a decision. I called an emergency press conference for the next morning. Are you sure about this? Sarah Harrison asked when I told her. Going public makes you even more of a target. I'm already a target, but if I go public, If I tell everyone what Kamau has done, what he's planning, what kind of man he really is, then he can't hide anymore. If something happens to me, everyone will know exactly who's responsible. You're using publicity as a shield. I'm using every weapon I have. Kamau thought my money made me vulnerable. He was wrong. It makes me powerful. And tomorrow, all of Kenya is going to see exactly how powerful. That night, I wrote a statement. The truth about my marriage, about Kamau's affair and embezzlement, about Wanjiku's pattern of destruction, about the threats and the attempts to take my daughter. All of it laid bare for public consumption. By morning, news outlets across Kenya had picked up the story. Billionaire heiress accuses ex-husband of plot to kill her, read one headline. Death threats follow exposure of serial homewrecker, read another. I stood in front of cameras at a press conference in downtown Nairobi, my statement in hand, my family behind me in support. My name is Akinyi Kariuki, I began, and I'm here today to tell you a story about domestic betrayal, infidelity, greed, and revenge. A story about what happens when a woman refuses to be silenced. I spoke for 20 minutes, outlining everything that had happened since my father's funeral. The affair, the eviction, the custody battle, the death threats, the break-in, and finally the credible threat against my daughter's life. My ex-husband Kamau is currently in jail facing fraud charges, I concluded. But even from behind bars, he's attempting to orchestrate violence against me and my 6-year-old daughter. Why? Because I had the audacity to inherit money that he believes should be his. Because I refused to be intimidated into giving up custody. Because I dared to fight back against a man who thought he could destroy me and face no consequences. The press erupted with questions. I answered them calmly, providing evidence for every claim, presenting documentation that backed up every accusation. By noon, the story had gone viral across East Africa. By evening, it was international news. Kenyan billionaire heiress fights back against domestic betrayal, read headlines from New York to London to Tokyo. My phone exploded with interview requests, offers of support, messages from women around the world sharing their own stories of surviving betrayal and infidelity. But more importantly, Kamau's lawyer called Sarah in a panic. My client denies all accusations of threatening Mrs. Kariuki. He's willing to sign any agreement, accept any terms, just to make this media attention stop. Too late, Sarah told him. Your client should have thought about consequences before he hired a thug to threaten a child. That night, the police arrested Patrick Muchwa at a bar in Eastleigh. In his possession, detailed notes about my security protocols, photos of Njeri's school, and a burner phone with text messages from Kamau discussing taking care of the Akinyi problem permanently. Kamau was charged with conspiracy to commit assault and solicitation of violence. His bail was revoked. He wouldn't be getting out of jail anytime soon. I received the news while sitting in Njeri's room, watching her sleep peacefully for the first time in weeks. My daughter was safe. Kamau was contained. Wanjiku was leaving the country. I'd won. But as I sat there in the darkness, I realized victory felt different than I'd imagined. Not triumphant, not celebratory, just quiet, settled, like the end of a storm that had raged too long. My phone buzzed one final time, a message from Wanjiku. I'm at the airport, leaving for Dubai tonight. I know you probably don't care, but I am sorry for everything. You deserved better than what Kamau and I did to you. I hope you and Njeri have a good life. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I typed a response. I hope you learn from this. I hope the next time you meet a married man, you remember what it cost both of us. Goodbye, Wanjiku. I deleted her number after sending it. That chapter was closed. But as I climbed into bed that night, exhaustion finally pulling me under, one thought kept circling my mind. This was over. But was I okay? After everything I'd done, everything I'd become to survive this war, was I still the woman my father had raised? The mother Njeri deserved? Those questions would have to wait for tomorrow. Tonight I just slept, deeply and dreamlessly, for the first time in months. Safe, victorious, and utterly, completely exhausted. Can you believe how far Akinyi has come? From a broken woman at a funeral to a force to be reckoned with. If this story inspired you, Hit that like button and subscribe to Tales by Ola. You won't want to miss how Akinyi's journey ends and what she does with her new life. Comment below. Did Akinyi handle everything the right way? Share this story with every strong woman you know. Retry, J. Continue. Chapter 7. 6 months had passed since the press conference that changed everything. I stood on the balcony of my Runda home, watching the Nairobi sunrise paint the sky in shades of gold and pink, and barely recognized the woman I'd become. The terrified widow who'd been thrown out on the day of her father's funeral felt like a stranger, someone from another lifetime. My phone buzzed with the morning's first notification. A news alert. Kamau Omondi sentenced to 12 years for fraud and conspiracy to commit violence. 12 years. Kamau would be nearly 50 by the time he got out. Njeri would be 18, a grown woman who barely remembered the father who tried to have her mother hurt. I felt nothing looking at that headline. No satisfaction, no vindication, just a quiet acknowledgement that justice, however slow, had finally arrived. Mama, Njeri's voice called from inside. Are you making breakfast, or is grandmother cooking today? I'm making breakfast, baby. Come help me. My daughter bounded onto the balcony, her hair in two puffs, wearing her favorite purple pajamas. At 7 years old now, she was thriving, confident, happy, adjusted to our new life in ways that amazed me daily. Can we make pancakes with the chocolate chips? Of course. Go wash your hands. As she ran off, my mother emerged from the guest room where she'd been staying for the past month. After everything that happened, I'd convinced Mama to move in with us permanently. She'd resisted at first, claiming she didn't want to be a burden, but eventually agreed when I pointed out that Njeri needed her grandmother and I needed my mother. You're up early, Mama said, joining me on the balcony. Another nightmare? No nightmares. I just wanted to watch the sunrise. That's progress. Mama squeezed my hand. 6 months ago, you couldn't sleep at all without medication. Now you're waking up early by choice just to enjoy the morning. Your father would be proud of how far you've come. Would he? I asked quietly. I destroyed people, Mama. I used money and power to ruin Kamau and Wanjiku. That's not exactly the daughter Papa raised. Your father spent 40 years building an empire specifically so his children would have power when they needed it, Mama said firmly. You didn't destroy Kamau. His own greed and violence destroyed him. You didn't destroy Wanjiku. Her pattern of preying on marriages destroyed her. You simply made sure they faced consequences for their actions. That's not cruelty, Akinyi. That's justice. I wanted to believe her. Most days I did, but some mornings, like this one, I wondered if I'd lost pieces of myself in the fight, pieces of kindness and forgiveness that I'd never get back. Come, Mama said, tugging my hand. Let's make pancakes with your daughter. That's the woman you are now. A mother who makes breakfast and watches sunrises. Not a warrior, not a destroyer. Just a woman building a good life from the ashes of a bad one. In the kitchen, Njeri chattered about her upcoming school talent show, while I mixed batter and Mama set the table. This domestic routine, so simple, so ordinary, was what I'd been fighting for all along. Not revenge, not victory, just peace and normalcy with my daughter. After breakfast, I had a full day ahead. First, a meeting with my financial advisors about the foundation I was establishing in my father's name, the Kariuki Foundation for Women's Empowerment, focused on helping women escape domestic violence and rebuild their lives. Then, a site visit to the women's shelter we were building in Kibera. Finally, an interview with a journalist writing a feature about wealthy women using their resources for social good. My life had become purposeful in ways I never imagined when I was just an accountant worried about making rent and keeping my marriage together. Mrs. Kariuki, James, my driver, called from the front door. Your 10 a.m. meeting, remember? I'll be ready in 15 minutes. As I dressed for the day, I caught my reflection in the mirror. Designer suit, expensive jewelry, confident posture, all the external markers of success. But my eyes told a different story. They'd seen too much, endured too much, learned too much about human cruelty and betrayal. Could you survive what I'd survived and remain unchanged? Or did battles like mine inevitably reshape you into someone harder, colder, less forgiving? The drive to my father's former office building, now the headquarters for Karaoke Enterprises, which I'd renamed after taking full control, took 40 minutes through Nairobi's notorious traffic. I spent the time reviewing reports, answering emails, and preparing for the meeting ahead. "Ma'am, we're being followed again," James said quietly as we approached Westlands. My stomach tightened. "Same blue Toyota?" "Different car. Silver Mercedes. Been with us since we left Runda." "Call Sergeant Omandi and take us to the police station. Same drill as before." But this time, the Mercedes didn't peel away. It followed us right into the police station parking lot, and when it stopped, a woman emerged. Professional, mid-40s, carrying a leather briefcase. "Mrs. Karaoke," she called. "I'm sorry for the dramatic approach. My name is Helen Odiambo, and I need to speak with you urgently. It's about Wanjiku Muthoni." My entire body went rigid. "Wanjiku is in Dubai. We have an agreement." "Wanjiku is dead," Helen interrupted. "She died 3 days ago in a Dubai hospital. And before she died, she asked me to deliver something to you." The world tilted. Dead. Wanjiku was dead. "How?" I managed. "Ovarian cancer, stage 4. She was diagnosed 2 months after arriving in Dubai. By the time doctors found it, it was too late. She had maybe 3 months from diagnosis to death." Helen's expression was somber. "She hired me to manage her affairs before she passed. I'm an executor of sorts, and she left something for you." Helen pulled a sealed envelope from her briefcase. My name was written on it in Wanjiku's handwriting, shaky, uneven, clearly written by someone very ill. "What is this?" I asked, not taking it. "A letter. She wrote it in her final days. She insisted I deliver it personally, not mail it, because she said you'd probably throw it away if you saw it was from her. Mrs. Karaoke, I don't know what's in that letter, but I promised a dying woman I'd make sure you received it. Whatever you choose to do with it after that is your business." I took the envelope with trembling hands. It felt heavy, multiple pages, thick with words Wanjiku had spent her final moments writing. "When did she die?" "Monday evening, 6:47 p.m. Dubai time. She was alone in the hospital. No family came. Apparently, they'd disowned her after everything that happened here in Kenya. I was the only one at her bedside when she passed." Helen paused. "She asked me to tell you something. Her exact words were, 'Tell Akinyi I finally understand what I took from her. Tell her I'm sorry it took dying for me to see clearly.'" After Helen left, I sat in my car in the police station parking lot, staring at the envelope. Sergeant Omandi and James waited patiently, not asking questions, just providing silent support. Finally, I opened it. "Akinyi, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. Cancer is a ruthless teacher. It strips away everything fake, everything shallow, everything you thought mattered. When you're dying, you see yourself clearly for the first time. And what I see is ugly. I destroyed you. I destroyed your marriage, your trust, possibly your father's life. I did it deliberately, calculatingly, and without remorse at the time. I told myself I was just claiming what I deserved, that Kamau chose me so I wasn't really stealing anything, that you were weak for not fighting harder to keep him. But lying here in this hospital, dying alone in a foreign country with no friends or family, because I destroyed every relationship I ever had, I understand now. I wasn't claiming anything. I was destroying everything. Your life, my own soul, any chance at real happiness. Rose and Miriam, the women whose stories you posted on that website, they reached out to me after I arrived in Dubai. They wanted me to know they forgave me. Can you imagine? Women I destroyed offering forgiveness I didn't deserve. They said it was because holding on to hatred was poisoning them, and they wanted to be free. I don't expect forgiveness from you. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know the truth about some things. Your father's teas? They were from a herbalist in Eastlands who claimed they'd help his energy levels. I truly thought I was helping him. The doctors here say the herbs might have interacted with his cancer medications, accelerated his decline. I might have killed him by trying to help. I'll carry that guilt to whatever comes after death. Kamau, he never loved me. I see that now. He loved what I represented. Someone new, someone who made him feel powerful and desired. The moment I got sick here in Dubai, I called him for help. He laughed, told me I'd gotten what I deserved. Then he hung up and blocked my number. The man I'd destroyed your marriage for couldn't even spare sympathy when I was dying. And you? You were everything I pretended to be. Strong without cruelty, successful without sacrificing integrity, a good mother, a good daughter, a good woman. I spent my life trying to steal what other women built because I didn't know how to build anything myself. I was a parasite, and parasites die when they run out of hosts. I used the money you gave me for treatment. It bought me 3 extra months of life, 3 months to face what I'd done, who I'd been, how much pain I'd caused. 3 months to understand that you weren't punishing me by exposing my pattern. You were protecting everyone I might hurt next. I don't know what happens after we die. I hope there's something, because I have a lot of apologies to make. Starting with you. I'm sorry, Akinyi, for everything. You deserved a faithful husband, a loyal cousin, a longer time with your father. I contributed to taking all of that from you. And my being dead doesn't erase that or make it okay. But I wanted you to know you won. Not because you destroyed me, I destroyed myself. But because you survived everything I threw at you and built something beautiful anyway. Your daughter is lucky to have you. Your father was right to trust you with his legacy, and Kamau was the biggest fool in Kenya for not appreciating what he had when he had you. Live well, Akinyi. Love deeply. Forgive easily. Everyone except people like me who don't deserve it. And if you ever doubt yourself, remember that you survived the worst domestic betrayal and infidelity imaginable and came out stronger. That's more than I can say. Wanjiku P.S. I've left instructions with Helen to liquidate my remaining assets and donate everything to your foundation. It's not much, maybe 1 million shillings after medical bills. But I wanted you to use it to help other women who might meet someone like me, save them from making my mistakes. I read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Not tears of forgiveness. I wasn't ready for that. Might never be ready. But tears of recognition that Wanjiku had died the way she'd lived. Alone, having destroyed every connection she'd ever had. Madam? James asked gently. Are you all right? I will be, I said, wiping my eyes. Take me to the office. I have work to do. The meeting with my financial advisors was productive. The Kariuki Foundation was nearly ready to launch, with an initial endowment of 50 million shillings and plans to expand across East Africa. We'd help women leave abusive relationships, provide legal representation in custody battles, offer job training and housing assistance, all the things I'd wished I'd had when Kamau first threw me out. The women's shelter in Kibera was coming along beautifully, a safe, clean facility where women and children could escape domestic violence and rebuild their lives. Opening day was scheduled for next month, and we already had a waiting list. Your father would be incredibly proud, said Margaret Wangari, my lead financial advisor. You've taken his wealth and used it to create lasting change. That was always the point, I said. Money is just a tool. The question is what you build with it. After the meeting, I had lunch with Rose and Jerry and Miriam Wambui, the 2 women Wanjiku had destroyed before me. We'd stayed in touch over the past 6 months, forming an unlikely support group of survivors. Wanjiku is dead, I told them after we'd ordered. Cancer. She died in Dubai 3 days ago. Rose and Miriam exchanged glances. Finally, Miriam spoke. How do you feel about that? I don't know. Relieved that she can't hurt anyone else. Sad that she died alone. Angry that she never faced real justice. Guilty that I feel anything at all. I pulled out the letter. She wrote this before she died, apologizing, acknowledging what she'd done. Do you believe her? Rose asked after reading it. I think dying made her honest in ways she never was while living. But belief? Forgiveness? I'm not there yet. Maybe I never will be. That's okay, Miriam said gently. Forgiveness isn't mandatory, Akinyi. You can acknowledge someone's apology without accepting it. You can understand their remorse without granting absolution. Healing doesn't require you to pretend the wound never happened. The therapist I've been seeing says the same thing, that I need to make peace with the past without necessarily forgiving everyone in it. I sip my tea. It's harder than it sounds. Of course it is, Rose agreed, but Akinyi, Look at what you've built from the ruins. A foundation helping women, a shelter providing safety, a public conversation about domestic betrayal and infidelity that's helping other victims feel less alone. You took your pain and transformed it into purpose. That's what healing looks like. Not forgetting, not forgiving necessarily, but moving forward and creating meaning from suffering. Her words resonated. Maybe that was the answer I'd been searching for. Not whether I'd handled everything perfectly, not whether I was the woman my father had raised, but whether I'd taken devastation and built something worthwhile from the wreckage. That evening, after putting Jerry to bed, I sat in my home office reviewing plans for the foundation launch. My phone rang. Sarah Harrison. Akinyi, I have news about the divorce. It's been finalized. You're officially no longer married to Kamau. Finally. The word felt like exhaling after holding my breath for months. There's more. Kamau's lawyer reached out. Kamau wants to write to Njeri. He claims he's been in prison therapy, working on taking accountability for his actions. And he wants to rebuild some kind of relationship with his daughter before she's too old to remember him. My first instinct was to refuse immediately, but I thought about Njeri, about the questions she'd have someday about her father, about the hole in her life where a dad should have been. What does the therapist recommend? I asked. She says it depends on what Kamau writes. If it's manipulative or self-serving, don't show it to Njeri. But if it's genuinely apologetic and age-appropriate, there might be value in Njeri knowing her father acknowledges his mistakes and still loves her, even from prison. Tell his lawyer I'll review any letters before deciding whether Njeri sees them. And Sarah, thank you for everything. I couldn't have survived this without you. You would have survived, Akinyi. You're one of the strongest women I've ever represented. I just helped you channel that strength effectively. After hanging up, I walked out to the balcony where this day had started. The Nairobi night was alive with lights and sounds. A city full of people fighting their own battles, surviving their own betrayals, building their own futures from whatever they had left. My phone buzzed. An email from Helen Odiambo with the subject line, Wanjiku's final donation. I opened it to find confirmation that 1.2 million shillings had been transferred to the Karaoke Foundation, along with a note. As requested, I've donated all remaining assets from Wanjiku Muthoni's estate to your foundation. She wanted women who might meet someone like her to have protection she never provided. I hope this helps. I stared at that number. Wanjiku's entire life, every relationship she destroyed, every marriage she'd ruined, every woman she'd hurt, reduced to 1.2 million shillings and a letter of apology written from a deathbed. Was that justice? Was that enough? Was that anything? I didn't know. Maybe there were no clear answers when it came to domestic betrayal and infidelity, revenge and forgiveness, justice and grace. Maybe all you could do was survive, rebuild, and hope you became someone your children could be proud of. Mama? Jerry's sleepy voice came from the doorway. I had a bad dream. Can I sleep with you tonight? Of course, baby. Come here. She climbed into my lap, still small enough to curl up against me, her head resting on my shoulder. Mama, why are you crying? I hadn't realized I was. I'm crying because sometimes grown-ups have complicated feelings, sweetheart. Happy and sad all mixed together. What are you happy-sad about? How did I explain this to a 7-year-old? That I was mourning the death of someone who tried to destroy me? That I was grateful for the money she'd left to help others? That I was relieved and guilty and angry and at peace all at once? I'm happy-sad because our family went through something very hard. But we survived it and became stronger. And now we get to help other families who are going through hard things too. Because of Babu's money? Because of Babu's love, I corrected. The money is just a tool, remember? What matters is how we use it. To help people, Jerry said confidently, like your shelter and your foundation. Exactly, to help people. We sat there together on the balcony, mother and daughter, watching Nairobi's lights twinkle in the darkness. This was what I'd fought for, this quiet moment of peace with my child. Everything else, the revenge, the justice, the consequences I'd orchestrated for Kamau and Wanjiku, had just been clearing the path to get here. Mama? Jerry asked sleepily. Are you going to be okay? The question caught me off guard. When had my daughter become perceptive enough to sense my struggles? When had she grown old enough to worry about me? Yes, baby, I'm going to be okay. We both are. Promise? Promise. As I carried her back to bed, I realized I believed it. For the first time since my father's funeral, I genuinely believed we would be okay. Not because the pain was gone, it wasn't, might never fully disappear. Not because I'd forgiven everyone who'd hurt me, I hadn't, might never completely, but because I'd learned something crucial. You didn't have to be unbroken to be whole. You didn't have to forgive everyone to find peace. You didn't have to forget the betrayal to build a future. You just had to keep moving forward, keep choosing to survive, keep building something worthwhile from whatever was left after the storm. 3 months later, I stood at the opening ceremony for the Kariuki Foundation's first women's shelter. Hundreds of people had gathered, supporters, donors, media, and most importantly, women who'd already benefited from our legal aid and relocation programs. My father, James Kariuki, spent 40 years building wealth in secret, I said during my speech. He did it to protect his family, to give us options when we needed them. When my marriage ended through domestic betrayal and infidelity, when I was thrown out of my home on the day I buried him, I learned exactly why he'd been so careful, so strategic, so protective. But I also learned something else. Wealth without purpose is just numbers on a page. My father's real legacy isn't the money he left me. It's the lesson he taught me, that power is only valuable when it's used to protect people who can't protect themselves. This shelter represents that lesson. Every woman who finds safety here, every child who sleeps without fear, every family that rebuilds after devastation, they're my father's true legacy. And they're proof that even the worst betrayal, the deepest pain, the most devastating loss can be transformed into something beautiful if you refuse to let it destroy you. The applause was thunderous. Rose and Miriam stood in the front row, crying. My mother held Nyeri's hand, both of them beaming with pride. My brother stood tall, understanding now why our father had divided the inheritance the way he did. Not because he loved me more, but because he knew I'd need it most and use it best. After the ceremony, as I toured the facility with the first group of residents, a young woman approached me timidly. Mrs. Kariuki, I just wanted to thank you. I left my abusive husband 3 weeks ago with nothing. No money, no family support, nowhere to go. Your foundation's emergency housing program literally saved my life, and now this shelter will help me rebuild. I don't know how to thank you. I took her hands. You don't need to thank me. You took the hardest step, leaving. Everything else is just logistics. You're going to rebuild, you're going to thrive, and someday when you're strong again, you'll help the next woman who needs it. That's how we change things. One woman, one family, one survival story at a time. As she walked away to explore her new home, I felt something settle in my chest. This was why I'd survived. This was what my father's wealth was meant for. This was how pain became purpose. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Kamau. I know I have no right to contact you, but I wanted you to know I watched the shelter opening on the news. You're doing incredible work. I know I destroyed our marriage and nearly destroyed you, but I'm glad you survived and became this. I'm glad Njeri has a mother like you. I don't expect forgiveness, just wanted you to know I see what you've built, and I'm genuinely proud. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I blocked the number and deleted the text. Some apologies came too late. Some bridges once burned shouldn't be rebuilt, and some people needed to stay in the past where they belonged. Kamau was Nyeri's father, and someday she might want a relationship with him. That was her choice to make when she was old enough. But he wasn't my husband anymore. Wasn't my problem. Wasn't someone I needed to acknowledge or absolve. I'd survived him. That was enough. As the sun set over Nairobi, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, I stood in the courtyard of the shelter I'd built from the ashes of my destroyed marriage, and felt for the first time in a year, completely at peace. My father had left me $1 billion empire, but the real inheritance wasn't the money. It was the lesson that you could survive anything if you refused to let it break you, that you could take betrayal and build justice, that you could transform pain into purpose. That was what I'd pass on to Nyeri. Not just wealth, but wisdom. Not just resources, but resilience. Not just my father's money, but his strength, his strategic thinking, his unwavering belief that his daughter could survive anything and build something beautiful from the ruins. I pulled out my father's letter, creased now from being read hundreds of times, and reread his final words. Don't just survive what's coming. Win, completely and thoroughly. Make them regret ever underestimating you. I'd done that, but I'd also done something more important. I'd survived without becoming bitter, won without losing my humanity, and built something lasting from temporary pain. That was the real victory. That was what made the journey worth it. As I drove home to my daughter and my mother and my new life built on my own terms, I felt my father's presence, not in grief or loss, but in pride and peace. I'd honored his legacy, I'd protected our family, and I'd turned his billion-dollar empire into something more valuable than money, a force for healing, for justice, for helping women survive what I'd survived and build what I'd built. That was enough. More than enough. That was everything.